right, let's unmute this guy. Let's mute this guy. Here we go. All right, testing this all out. Very good. We'll turn on some video. Here we go. All right, we're live, and I don't know where else we're live, but Mr. Vato, you're on mute. I think you got that little monkey on mute there.
All right.
Here we go. We're on. Nice one. I'm going to give you video access, I think, right? So
let's see.
No, I don't know. You've got to press your profile. It's still very, very new to what's going on here. So
let's see.
I don't know if I've got to give you some sort of access. Oh, here we go. Maybe I could do this. Make you a producer.
Oh, that's it.
Maybe you've got it now. Beautiful.
You
All right, let's give it a test.
Make them proud.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. I see a microphone. I did this before, and I can't remember how I did it. It's been so long. Okay. Accept request. Oh, somebody wants to come up. I'll let you do all the accepting.
Yeah, this is a podcast where we're going to do an interview with Paul Vato. This is the interviews I do with the Rocstedi interviews. And so what we'll do is, because we don't have messages, voice notes, towards the end of the podcast, or maybe even during it, I might just bring people up for a question, throw them back down to the audience. So I think, with no further ado, we should just get started, Mr. Vato.
You got it. I wish I could figure out how to do the camera. I don't see the camera option.
That's of course. So, okay, let's do this. Does that work? Invite to video mode.
Yes, that works.
Oh. Right, well, there you go. It's all fairly new.
Oh, turn on video.
I'm waiting to see. There we go. All right, we got you. Man, we got you.
Okay.
Beautiful.
That works, right?
Mr. Paul Vato. Yeah, we got it. We got the claps from the audience. It's wonderful. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, cool. This is good. I like this. It's really different and it's really professional. And I'm pretty happy to be here with you today. First time I'm going live with a camera. I usually do my podcasts through stereo with a cartoon avatar. I usually have my nice little mic, but I couldn't get it set up in time. So I've got my headphones for today, but from here on, I should have a nice little studio set up. But Mr. Paul Vato, the Rocstedi podcast, episode 24 with Mr. Paul Vato. I'm really happy to be on here with you. We've been meaning to do a show for a little while, so this is kind of the most perfect opportunity to do it. Here on Fireside today, my very first professional show on Fireside. So big shout out to Fireside for getting us on as a content creator, and yourself as well, I believe.
Yeah, well, I've been around, but I really haven't been creating much. But I have been a guest on somebody else's, on a few other shows. I did one. I don't know if Victoria's here. We did her show, which was almost a Broadway style production, a table read where it was fantastic. So I was a guest on that. But I haven't actually gone on and created anything. So I'm glad you've given me the opportunity to be here.
Nice. Excellent. I want to give a quick little shout out to our audience, first of all. We've got a lot of our friends from stereo over here. We've got Lolly, Southern Hubs. We've got yourself. We've got Stephanie, who's not from stereo, but welcome, Stephanie. I have seen you on another show here on Fireside before. Adorable Deplorable. We've got Uncle Eddie. We've got Cunny McShitballs and EMC for life. So thanks for joining us on this show so far, guys. Yeah, it's really a suck and see program where we've got to test it out. Instead of getting everything perfected, I just want to go for gold and get going. So there's that little sound bite. There you go. Lovely. I like that. All right. So, Paul, let me kind of set the tone of the podcast a little bit if we can. What I tend to do is I'm not used to the whole camera thing, to be honest. It's throwing me slightly. But not that I'm shy. I'm just trying to get used to it. So basically, you've seen a couple of my interviews before, I believe, and with that, I sort of go into people's lives. I start from the beginning, as we always do, and kind of go through the process. If there's anything you don't want to talk about, you don't have to. Of course, we can skip over it. But I'm guessing you're the type of guy who wears your heart on your sleeve and I've got nothing to hide. So let's just go into whatever you want to go into. Well, he's got some things to hide, but just don't say them, all right?
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's get into it. So basically, where were you born? Sort of how old are you roughly? You don't have to say specifically, and sort of where were you raised as a child? Where you were
Wonderful.
born?
Yeah. I can answer two out of those three questions. I was born in Aurora, Illinois, which is in the Midwest. It's a suburb of Chicago. I think, but Aurora's gotten big enough where it almost doesn't consider itself a suburb of Chicago. Most people will know it as Wayne's World. That's where the fictional movie Wayne's World took place. Was in Aurora,
Right.
Illinois. So yeah, which is again a suburb of Chicago. I was. What else? Oh, I'm older. I'm an actor, so sometimes I don't like to do that. You tell me how old I look and how old I can play. So
Can I do a quick Google search or?
yeah, you can do a quick Google search. So yeah, I'm in my 40s.
All right, not a problem. So you're born around Chicago area, so raised around there, and what was life for you like as a kid?
Wow. Okay. Great question. Well, I like to say I was born in Chicago, where we don't have an accent. Chicago.
Okay.
So right. It was good. It was. I mean, it was a two-parent household. Even though I didn't really grow up with my dad because he was an immigrant. So I guess I'm first and a half generation. My mom being from Texas, which Texas is not Mexico and it's not the U.S. It's Texas. And my father, that's coming from the Texans. They're very proud. They're almost their own entity there. And my father from Mexico, that's some Texans. And then my
There we
father
have.
immigrated from Mexico. So growing up, he worked 2 8-hour jobs. So that's why I said I didn't really grow up with my dad. My mom was a stay-at-home
Jeez.
mom. Yeah, imagine that. I get up, I do an audition. I had to rest all day just to do this because I was already exhausted. I'm like, oh
Hmm.
no, I got to do this, and then I'm sure after this I'll take a nap. But my poor father worked 2 8-hour jobs, and this was for about 10 years. It was because the first company that he was going to work for, that he had been working for, which was right down the street from our home, they were going to close. They thought they'd be closed within 6 months. So they're like, Pablo, you should definitely go look for other work because we'll probably be closed in 6 months. So he and another young guy, and my father was already old. I should preface it by saying I was born when he was like in his 40s. So my mom is, much younger, as it should be. No, I'm kidding. And sorry. And
We got that right.
he so I was born when he was in his 40s. So he was already older. So I mean, this would have been, God, I can't even remember how old I was when he started doing this. But he, what happened was he went to go work for the Department of Energy, a place called Fermilab, which is a physics plant where they smash atoms. And so he went to work there, and the first place that he was working at ended up not closing for another 10 years.
All
So
right.
he just keeping both jobs. So he'd leave at 6 in the morning, walk. I think he'd walk to his first job. It was only like a block away, and they made forklifts, and he was a supervisor there. And then then he'd come back home, uh, grab. I think he'd come home for lunch. Then he'd come back home, grab his dinner, and then drive to Fermilab to work another 8-hour shift. So for about 10 years, this is until he retired. So that's why for me it
Wow.
was kind of difficult to not, I didn't grow up with a father. He was there, but he really wasn't around. So my mom really raised my brother and myself, and we always spoke Spanish to my dad. I didn't realize he spoke English until years later when I saw him get in a fight and cuss out a guy in English. I was like, holy shit! Like, what was I? My mind went. How many times was I sitting on the phone talking to my friends, going like, "Nah, he doesn't." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get the girls. Let's go. Let's do this. You know. Oh no. He just sat there. Just like a fox, just listening and never acknowledged. I was like, okay, he knows everything I was always up to.
Sure.
That's I have a brother. I have a brother Joe who has really done well for himself. He was in human resources, and now he owns his own labor staffing company, Labor Personnel. So shout out to them for anyone that's looking for staffing needs. But for like big factories, that need hundreds of people. So yeah, I don't know. I think he probably has thousands of people that he that are employed through his staffing company, and yeah, he got his MBA. So he's more the business guy. But yeah, I'm like the brown sheep of the family. I've done both though. I'm an actor, um, but I was a business owner first. So yeah, that was growing
Right.
up in
Okay.
how the landscape.
Okay. So can I ask why your dad was doing so many hours with his shift? I mean, did he have the work mentality to work, save, save, save? As being maybe an immigrant coming to America, trying to make the most of it. Was that kind of his attitude?
I would imagine so. That, or he had another family in Mexico that I didn't know about.
Or maybe you do and don't want to say.
And I've thought about that, and I'm like, oh my god, like I could have stepbrothers that are like in their 70s. I'm guessing, 60. How crazy would that?
And you wouldn't know.
But I think he came from a family of 12 or 13. So he helped all his sisters. I know there were 3 brothers and maybe 9 sisters. I think they're pretty much all gone. And so I know that he would send money back home, but it was to help his mom and all his relatives back there. So he really was like supporting more than one family. But it was his siblings and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
But it was also so that I guess it's that immigrant mentality. It's like I've made it to the United States of America, and I'm going to make it easier for my kids, and I do appreciate it. He always said, "Mijo," which means my son, "Mijo, I worked hard my whole life, so you didn't have to." And I said, "Okay, that's perfect." So,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's when people, they've struggled so much where they're from, then they come here and they realize the great opportunity that America has to give. And he took advantage of it. And part of it was, I think, he got used to the money coming in because, he was doing just fine working one 8-hour factory job that he didn't need to take another one. But then it was also a matter of pride because I remember that the neighbor, and they would drive together to Fermilab. And the neighbor happened, and the neighbor was like in his 20s. He was like 23 or 24. Because my mom would tell me the story, and he was making fun of my dad. He goes, "You're old," because when you're 23, you think that 43 is old, or no, gosh, no, I'm sorry, my dad would have been like in his 50s already. So this 23-year-old's like, "You're old, Pablo. You'll never make it. Like I can make it. I can work. You'll be done in a month." So I think part of it was like, who can make it. And apparently the neighbor who was in his 20s, and he was also like recently married, so he had to work. He I think made it like 6 months and was like, I can't do this. And my father, he kept going until that the original plant that was supposed to close within 6 months ended up closing 10 years later because they got bought out by Clark Equipment, also a forklift manufacturer. So they ended up closing, but not for 10 years. And that's right. So that's when he just went down to one 8-hour job at Fermilab.
Right.
And
That's like semi-retired, right?
Yeah, he was like being retired. He just had to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally, he would leave at 6 in the morning. He was the guy that would come in at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, grab a lunch that my mom had packed for him, drive over to the other job, get back by midnight. Come. No, I guess he would work 5 till like 1 or 2, 1 in the morning. Come home. We were sleeping by then. As kids, we were late because we had school the next day. And so he was the guy that we'd see on the weekends, and on the weekends he'd start. He was working around the house, putting illegal additions to our house, and then eventually buying real estate and whatnot. So.
Sure. Well, he's certainly a hard worker. I mean, you almost don't hear of it these days anymore. You know what I mean? From back then, the way that people used to work. I come from Italian descent, and my grandfather came out in the 50s. They had the same mentality back then. You know, even my dad, when he left school, it was straight from school, straight to the sawmill factory, shoveling sawdust. Him and his brothers, they used to, I think they earned $22 a week back then, and my grandfather let them keep $2. And he said, the family's poor, we need to take $20, right, to feed the family. And he did that for many years. My dad and his brothers just never questioned it. And my dad being the oldest, when he got married with my mum, my grandfather, speaking Italian, not really speaking English at all, asked my dad to come and look at this house he wanted to buy, and check it out and everything like that. And he said, sign for it, power of attorney or whatever. And when he signed it, obviously, congratulations, it's your house. All the $20 that he'd been taking over the years, he'd saved for him. So my dad actually owned his house when he got married, you know. So it was a nice thing that they did back then, but they certainly don't do that sort of stuff these days, you know.
That's amazing. I've heard that happening in a lot of, Greek or Italian or Latino communities where, right. Yeah, and how nice was that your parents were able to start off their life without having a mortgage, because his dad had taken care of that. I thought you were going to say he gambled all the way and was like, hey, I need more money.
Well, I think my grandfather may have been a womanizer, and that's still in the blood a little bit. But I think hopefully it's gone by the time the generations of my kids onwards. But what can I say?
Well, your kid, because you're a pretty good-looking guy, so I'm sure.
Thank you. Did you like the Superman avatar thing that we did there? Spider-Man Super from the post I did earlier. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so going back to your childhood at home then with your mum, what was it like for your mum raising two boys? What was the age gap between you and your brother, sorry?
A year and a half.
Year and a half, right. So it's pretty full on.
My theory is, she had me and she was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. This is beautiful. I'm going to have a ton of babies. And she had my brother and was like, that's it. No more. That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Even if she wanted more, your dad would have been super tight. He sounds like quite the man, but to get home and have to put the effort into, Yeah. Okay.
Apparently, I tried to gouge my brother's eye out when she brought him home. I was only a year and a half old, and I went right for the eyes, and so she shows me. I go, like I kind
of. It's competition, man. Competition.
Competition. I'm like, I don't need to. I'm the only baby. I'm the only child.
You recognize it at a young age. That's what's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so for your mum, right? So she's raising you two boys very close in age. So when one's going through or coming out of terrible twos, the other one's starting. So it's just like a non-stop thing for your mum. How does she handle that as your mother at home? With your dad not around as much because he was working so much.
Right. I mean, so she just took on all the responsibilities. Now, granted, I remember our grandmother lived with us. Her mother lived with us because she and her mother, my grandmother, had moved from Texas to Ohio, which is a neighboring state to Illinois. And then they found out that there was work in Illinois, so that they ended up going to Illinois. And actually, she met my dad on the first day that she was in Illinois. She walked into a pharmacy, and her friend was like, "Oh, like look at these two guys." She goes, "I want the handsome one," which I guess was my dad. I get it. And I guess my dad was interested in my mom, but it turned out years later that pharmacy eventually turned into a Taekwondo school. Where many years later, my brother and I actually took Taekwondo at Kim.
Oh, right.
At that same location that my mom and dad met, many years before.
You were dropping people on the mat.
Yeah. So my mom had help, as in my grandmother, but she was a new mom. I know that there are stories about her, like rock. Maybe it was me or maybe it was my brother. It's probably me. And she was just rocking and she fell asleep. And apparently my grandmother walks in and she's like, Maria, wake up. And her arms were just like this. She was so exhausted. And I was just like hanging on for dear life around her neck, So maybe it was my brother. She was tired. But I think another reason that my dad worked so hard was then so they could send us to parochial school. So we went to parochial school, private school, which I don't know, not as maybe fancy as it sounds, but yeah, St. Therese, so it was Catholic school, and but we got the attention that we needed, and we were, I think, relatively pretty good students. So from
Well, tell
kindergarten.
me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about your school. So when you started going to primary school, was it an easy thing for you to do? Were you pretty good at your education academically? And I imagine you were pretty social as a kid, or did you have trouble at the start?
I had a
How were
lot
you
of trouble
socially adapted?
because we'd never been
Tell us.
socialized really, because
Right.
my mom was so protective, and rightly so. I think I don't know how early, but I think right away that they knew not to mess with us. She pretty much had a talk with all the nuns and priests and said, "My children are not to be touched. If they need to be punished, I will do the punishing." She goes, "But you let me know." She goes, "And trust me, they will be punished. They're not going to get away with anything, but no one's to lay a hand on my children." And they never did. And it was,
I love that.
corporal punishment had already kind of gone away. So it was after, maybe soon after, where hitting was no longer allowed with rulers, but there were still some curmudgeonly. Uh,
Yep. I went through it too. Yep. Yep.
yeah, I mean there were still some
Yeah.
old farts there.
Old school nuns. Yeah, that's right.
That
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think if they could get away with it, they would smack kids around, because I do remember other kids getting hit, but not
Yeah.
not
I
as
got
in like
struck as
in front
well.
of everybody. They'd hide it, which is that's the way. If you're going to abuse kids, you got to do it so you don't get caught. Um,
Yeah, nobody wants to get caught abusing kids, and
no,
just for that matter, I think your mum did the right thing. I think I should also go to my kids' school and tell the priest not to touch my son up as well.
yeah, if anyone's
It's
going to touch
yeah,
you, let's get.
it's me. Yeah, that's right. No, so yeah, but I remember in first grade, there was a kid that looked a lot like me. We looked very similar. We both had really short hair. And the nun who was in first grade, she was kind of going senile because she was so old, but so strict. And we used to have to go to church every Wednesday morning, and we had to always she said, don't remove your hands from prayer like this the whole time. So I was scared, I'm doing the right thing. And then whenever we get back to class, the people that moved, she would give them, it was like it was a 3 foot long, 1 meter long rule
Yeah,
that
of
she'd
course.
cane you on the ass with, right? Yeah. And because she was so old, she used to keep thinking I was this guy who was always quite cheeky. Vince DeFranco's his name, right? So I used to keep copping the cane for his mess ups all the time. But yet when my parents would come to school, she'd click into it as me. Oh, your son's such an angel. I was such a good boy for that. So I didn't know what was going on at that age. It's only when I got older I realized that she kept mixing me up with this kid. But yeah, they still get away with it. I'm 40, so 35 years ago or so, that was still happening, with the cane.
Wow, that's yeah. Because I guess in the U.S., or at least in this district, in this parish, it had kind of already gone away. And again, I'm sure, and there was also, I remember, younger teachers. The nuns were there, but I think they were starting to get phased out more for lay people that worked in the church. But that's kind of crazy that kind of the same thing was going on in Australia at the
Yeah, yeah,
world. But
it is. Yeah, yeah.
so we were very, very protected. We were raised. We'd always kiss our mom. My dad, maybe on the cheek, but not really. I was more, and the same with my mom. It was one of these weird things where we always found it weird that white parents kiss their kids on the lips. Like we're like, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
So for us, it was always like on the cheek.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do it. How old
Yep.
I am, and I still do it. And I remember one of her friends going like, "Oh, they do that now because they're young, but you just watch when they get in high school, they're not going to do that anymore because they're going to be embarrassed of you." But no, and we were never embarrassed. And then they're like, and then I remember one particular lady was like, they're probably going to grow up. Your kids are going to grow up to be criminals. They're hiding all this stuff. And it turned out to be her kids were the ones that end up in jail and just troublemakers.
Right.
But that's I think my mom. But no, we were always, we were raised to be respectful. I think it helped when we got into Taekwondo. I mean, it didn't help. We were just used to it. Respect your elders, respect the police, you know, just knowing that the world is not fair. You can't outrun a police radio. And I think because my dad had worked so hard, I mean, he bought us, a nice car well, he bought my brother a nice car. I was always driving the older cars, but I think even 2 years difference, my brother ended up getting nicer cars than me. But yeah, so we're pretty
Okay.
much all the way and then I went away to school. I went to the University of Illinois, which was I broke my mom's heart because I was leaving the house. But no, when you're talking about kindergarten, it was very tough for me because I assumed that my mom would be there with me. Like she was like, "No, you get dropped off at school." I was like, "What? Like this is crazy!" And I was crying. I cried so hard. Yeah.
Are you one of those kids?
Yeah, I was because I wasn't
Yeah.
used to, I was a mama's boy. I wasn't used to.
Sure. Sure.
We didn't go. They didn't believe, or I don't know if they didn't believe in preschool, or just why would we send them to preschool when I'm home? I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm not going to send them off to preschool.
Mm-hmm.
My
but that's the conditioning before kindy, right? It's that conditioning, just spending a couple of hours away from mum, but I didn't get that either. Same thing for me. I was in tears. I used to hate school right through all of my school. I used to hate school. So yeah, never really grew out of me, but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. So did you have any trouble socializing with other kids? Did you get picked on or anything like that, or bullied, or did you get along with them okay?
I think I got along with them okay. I mean, I really came into my own, I think, maybe in high school. And I think it's because the way I look now, like overweight was probably the same way I looked when I was a kid. So I was like this fat little kid. And my brother was like the opposite. We looked like a 10 walking down the street. He was a stick, and then I was like this butterball. So we were the perfect 10. And and he was the picky eater. I was not. But whenever we were hungry, and it's like we didn't grow up with a healthy attitude towards food because for breakfast, I remember in kindergarten, first grade or something, when they're like, what did you kids have for breakfast? And I had one of those. We still had, what were they called? The ones, the Ditto machine. It was like before copiers maybe, or during copiers, but a cheaper way. They'd run them off on a Ditto machine. We just put ink on a paper. And so I remember it had kind of like a bluish ink, and I remember getting that. And it said, "What did you have for breakfast?" And you're supposed to circle the things you have for breakfast. So most normal kids were like milk, cereal, toast. So I go egg. I go, there's bacon. I go milk, orange juice, and I probably wrote in beans, rice, tortillas. I like that. And I think they thought that I was being malnourished, and I was just making it up. Like, oh my God, he's got quite the imagination, little Pablo here, because he's obviously. I'm like, well, look at me. I was already like 100 pounds overweight. And so they called my mom, and they're like, "Maria, what did Pablo have for breakfast?" And she's like, "Oh my God, instantly like, oh my God, is he sick? What happened?" They're like, no, he's not sick. She goes, "Did he throw up?" They're like, "No. What'd you give him for breakfast?" And she's like, well, let's see. This morning I made eggs, toast, bacon, beans, right?" And they're like, "Stop. Okay, stop. They're like, "Wait, you mean to tell me that you wake up every morning and make him breakfast?" She's like, "Yeah, every morning." And they like, people were they were like, "What?" Like, because everybody else just had Nesquik or whatever, chocolate milk, and that was their breakfast. And so she's like, "Yeah, I make them breakfast to both of them. Yeah, I don't send them to school hungry." So I think part of that was the reason how, I blame her for my food issues and weight issues. And I think it's because, they grew up poor, so they didn't have a lot to eat. So now that they were at least able to afford food, and it was rich foods, things that will give a 22-year-old the gout instead of normal men, like when you're in your 40s or 50s. So I think I had gout when I was as early as like in my 20s, but it was always misdiagnosed because it was so unheard of that 22-year-old would have that. But I was maybe 23 because that's when I bought my ice cream shop, and I remember
Yeah.
my foot hurting and going like, "What is this?" Like, and my elbows hurting. I banged it when I was scooping ice cream, and so I think I've and then years later I finally got diagnosed, and I got it in the head, but.
I heard it absolutely is excruciating pain with gout. Is that right?
It is the worst pain in the world, and I wish there was a way to connect somebody else to that pain, because I'd honestly would like to see if it's more painful than childbirth, and I'll bet it is. And I know that
Really?
I know that what I'm saying is going to be kind of outrageous to say, but
Look, childbirth is overrated anyway.
yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
women have been doing it for millions of years, so
Yeah, you
it can't.
think they'd adapt to it by now, right?
And I know that they say that
We're going to
men
get cancelled.
instantly. And I know they say that we're not good with pain, and I get it because we complain a lot. But it is like somebody has an ice pick into your bone, and every time your heart beats, it jams right into your bone. Or if it's like on your if it happens on your knees, I mean, it debilitates your whole body. You can't even like get out of bed. But you can literally hear your heart. You can feel your heartbeat, and it's uric acid, that's crystallized around your joints. It's a form of
Yeah.
arthritis, and they call it
Yeah.
they call it the king's disease. It's the disease of kings, and the disease of kings. Because they would eat rich food. So I blame my parents for that. And and then it didn't help that my first business was a gourmet ice cream and coffee shop. When I bought it, I was 200 pounds.
Right.
I was 300 pounds, and then slowly went up to like 360 or 370, like 4 or 5 years ago. And then I discovered yoga, and I've gone back down to under 300. So I'm slowly.
Right. Well done, man. Good. Yeah. It's all about the health at the end of the day, right? Okay. So you're going through school and you seem to adapt with everyone okay. Kind of like you're getting along with school okay. So you're finding that you're starting to form what you wanted to be when you're older. Your dad's working all the time. Your mum's having to look after you. You start to form like some sort of inspiration of where you want to go, what you want to do.
Well, I think because being influenced by my dad, I remember that my mom would pack us. She bought us little lunch pails, like work lunch pails, like made out of aluminum that like my dad had. They probably weren't little; they were probably the same ones that my dad had. And she would make my brother and I lunch or breakfast, probably lunch, and we would go to our porch and eat there like we were at work. So I think in our minds we were getting ready to do factory work. The coffee thermos, but maybe filled with milk.
Sure.
Us.
Yeah.
And but I don't remember thinking like, "Ooh, you know what? I'd love to be this, or I'd love to be that." Our job was really to study, to be in school, to study, to learn whatever it was that were teaching us. Anything from and when you go to a private school or parochial school, gym or physical ed isn't really the most important. The most important thing is going to church, once or twice a week. Or that, on Wednesdays, I think that must be universal, right in the middle of the week. So our job was really just to learn and pay attention. But I don't think we started thinking about, oh, I would like to do this, or I'd like to become an actor. I mean, that really came much later. I do remember I was very helpful, and I didn't remember, but about I forget how long, maybe 3-4 years ago, I went back for a high school reunion, and there was this kid Rogelio, and it kind of brought a tear to my eye because he's now a very successful engineer. He's led this great life, and he thanked me. He goes, because of Paul. He goes, I am where I am now. He goes, because Paul, because apparently he didn't know any English when he goes, I just got here from Mexico. And I remember, and I do, thinking back, I do remember, because we'd have like a Burger King crown that they would put little stars on when you did something good at school. So I guess I was the translator. So I would translate for him, and and so that he could learn. And he said that I did that for all through like kindergarten and first grade until he learned English. So apparently I was always kind of like this connector and always trying to help out. I didn't remember until he said it, but he really like gave me, I think, too much credit. But he would have learned eventually. But he said I was like the only one that made him feel welcome, and I translated for him, and he was like eternally grateful. And I was like, so it was very nice of him to share that with me.
A little bit of kindness goes a long way. You don't even realize you're doing it at the time sometimes, right? And sometimes a little bit of nastiness goes a long way too. So sometimes you're a bit smart ass or cocky to somebody, and that they could take that and carry it their lifetime from a childhood and have an effect. Whereas obviously with yours, it was a more positive thing. So yeah, kudos to you, man. It's great feedback to hear, right? A lifetime later.
Yeah, a lifetime later, it's like, wow, okay, yeah, man. Well, I'm glad he shared it because it did. It brought back a lot of good memories. And my mom was like, "Oh yeah," she goes, "Yeah, you're always translating for the other little Mexican kids." I was like, "Oh, okay.
Good, excellent." So, can I ask you, what were your feelings towards, or what were your thoughts running through your mind as a kid when you felt your dad wasn't there as much? Because you mentioned a few times he wasn't there because he was working for good reason. As we're an adult, we understand that, right? But as a kid, maybe we don't. Did you have any resentment for that, or did you feel that you were left out in any way when your father wasn't around due to working so much?
No, I don't think so. Not at all, because that's just the way it was. It wasn't like, oh well, Billy over there, how come his dad's always around? Because we didn't really, um, I guess, socialize with that many kids. I mean, we just socialized with other kids at school, so we didn't really know what their home life was like. It wasn't like we were until maybe we got older that then we started having friends and maybe sleepovers and things like that. But even their parents were hardworking. By the time we'd get there, it was the evening, so the dad was around. You're like, okay. So I don't think it's a great question, because I don't. Sometimes it's like, well, is that what messed me up, or why am I so messed up? I don't know. Maybe we're all messed up, but I don't. I don't think so, because we just assumed that every family was like that. And because it was my dad was there, he just wasn't around because he was working. And we see him on the weekends, and on the weekends he was also working around the property, or as they bought other real estate, working on other houses and things like that. So no, I don't think so. And my mom, I think, and it's the typical old school guy where he never told us that he loved us or anything, but apparently he told other people that. But my mom more than made up for it, and I don't think she just did it to make up for it. I think she just, to this day, she's like, I love you. I'm praying for you, and she prays for our friend. When my friends reach out to me, I reach out to my mom. I'm like, she'll take care of it. She's closer. She's closer to God. She's closer to Jesus. Before they listen to me. So that's who you want on your side. So I don't know. I don't. I'd like to think that it didn't really affect me negatively, but who knows? I've never really talked about it with anyone.
Sure. We can open up right now if you like.
Sure.
No, I'm just joking. Okay. Let me throw this question at you then. If your dad was around more, if just working the normal 8 hours a day, comes home, and he was home for more of that time, how different do you think the effect may have been on your life?
I don't think it would have been any different, because he would have found something to do to be busy, because he was like the hardest working guy I've ever met. And I think it's because, he was pulled out of school when he was young. So I don't even know how he ended up working, for the Department of Energy. It was before you needed any kind of degree. So he probably got out of school maybe in sixth grade, but he was great at math. So he was always working on projects. So he was even nonstop on the weekend. So I would assume that if he had a regular job, 9 to 5, or 6 to 3, or whatever that first morning factory shift is. I wouldn't know, because I don't like to get my hands dirty. So he I don't know if he would have been around, but he would have just been busy, and we're kids, and again, he was older, so if by the time that we start getting into our teens, uh, he's already like in his 60s. So it's like really there's nothing there. It's not like, oh, that's my buddy, that's my dad, he's my buddy. He's too old to throw the football around. He doesn't even know what a football is. He'd like boxing, so I don't think I'd want to go down that route with him. Like, let's box. But he was tough, because I remember you get to that age where you think you can take your dad. You're like, if I had to, I've got 6 months of Taekwondo under my belt. I could probably take him. And
I've got 6 months, and he's in his 60s. I've got a chance here.
yeah. But then watch out for old guys, because they have a lifetime of getting shit on, maybe, and they're ready to go because he got in a fight with. And I want to say it was that same neighbor that he used to be friends with, and I remember the guy backed up into our driveway. We had a long driveway, and like at 3 or 4 in the morning, screeched his tires and went out into the street. So the next day, they get into words, and the guy and my dad. I just saw him like bend down and pick something up, and then I looked, and behind his back, he had this big rock in the back of his head, behind his back. And he just stood in his property, and I remember he waved the guy over. He goes, "What?" Like he couldn't hear. Like, "What? Okay." The guy comes over, attacks my dad. My dad just headlocks him and pummels him with his rock. And I had to like break him up because I was like, my dad's going to kill this guy. So, of course the cop. But he was on his property. He got attacked, and then the guy was saying, "I'm going to kill," in Spanish. "I'm going to kill you." He was telling my dad. He goes, "I'm going to kill." And the cop actually spoke Spanish, but he wasn't letting on. And my mom was translating. And the cop goes, "Stop." He goes, I understood everything you said. So they took him off to jail. I think that was the end of it. But I was like, these old guys are sneaky, man. So I was okay. What? I changed my mind. I don't think I can take him. Never mind. Let's he's in his 80s.
That's it. Give him some more time.
Yeah,
like a fine wine.
And make sure there's no box.
That's it. Okay. So we'll just try something. We're going to get back into the story in just a second. I just want to give the audience a shout out real quick if we can. We've got Lolly in there. So how you going? Thanks for joining us. We've got Adorable Deplorable, Southern Hubs. We've got Red Rosa, the beautiful Brianna. We've got Uncle Eddie, Woody, EMC for life. We've got my boy Elvis, and we've got Eric. Thanks for joining in so far, and the listeners here on Fireside. What a fantastic platform this is so far. We do, if anyone wants to ask a real quick question or two, because we don't have voice notes we can drop here, so I can just bring you up. You can ask a question to Paul, and I can throw you back down to the audience real quick before we go on with the story. We do have 2 people who... I don't know how to work this. Sorry, Paul. I'm so brand new at this. Okay, I don't think we're going to do that just today. Okay. We're not going to do that unless you know how to do it. I just want to bring someone up. If they want to ask a question, throw them back down. But I think, you know what, next time I'm going to have my Rodecaster Pro with the mic and all that set up properly, and I'll be able to simulcast and control it a little bit better. This time here, just ran out of time. So we'll continue with the podcast, but I did want to give the audience a shout out that's listening here live on Fireside. This is being streamed to YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. I have no idea if it's working or not. I'm not over there. I'm supposed to get it all set up, but I have no idea if it's going. But anyway, nonetheless. Okay, thanks for the audience. All these little emojis are cool, aren't they? They can put their sound effects. All right, Paul. So as you're turning towards school, having to hit the workforce, what's on your mind? Are you looking forward to leaving school? And what sort of inspiration did your dad have on the workforce? Because he's working double shifts, right? So did you think that's what life had to be like, or?
I did. I think I did. But then when you find out that that's not the way it is, you're like, wait, what? There are other options. I think I'd resolve myself to I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to get, you're going to work 12 hours a day, or, in his case, 16 or more hours a day. And that's just the way it is. But then you realize, my first job was still when I was in high school. The place that I go buy clothing, was a Silverman's menswear. I was in haberdashery. I sold men's clothing, and it was because I was in there, 2 or 3 times a year, but right before school was to come back, we would go shopping. And then finally, I think I was maybe 15 or 16, and they're like, you should work here. Like, you're here now. You're here all the time anyways. And they're like, and you'll get a discount. You get like 30% off or 50% off or something. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, all right. So that was my first job was in high school, working and it was basically, I was already dressed for work because all the clothes I bought was from there. And it was when, boat shoes and, Miami Vice was kind of the thing. And my age, but yeah. So I worked in high school, and then I was pretty much a mall rat. We worked at Fox Valley Mall, and there's now this great show on Netflix called Chicago Party Ant that some friends are involved with, which takes place over the Chicagoland area. So that brought back I tweeted out about it, because I ended up going from Silverman's Menswear to a store right across the mall, in the mall, right across the hallway, I guess, a place called Just Pants. We called it Just Booty because we had binoculars and we'd spy on the girls that worked over there. And I was like, I'd rather work over there instead of these. So I went to work over there at Just Pants. And I'd always wave across because I knew that they were watching. They weren't watching me, but
you were hiding.
It was a different time back there. I think we were able to get away with it. And then I went to work for Tandy Corporation, which owned Radio Shack, but they owned this place called Video Concepts, and Video Concepts specialize in like big screen TVs and video cameras and things like that. When they were kind of newer, so not cheap. And then I kept that job through the summers. So whenever I'd come home from college, I'd work there, and it was great because we would get paid on commission. That's when I was like, you don't have to work 8 hours a day and make so much per hour, because then you realize there's only so many hours in a day. Even if you work 24 hours a day, getting paid hourly, you can never make enough. So it was like, okay. So I think that's what kind of shifted my mind into sales. So it was, it was, kind of relying on commission sales. And I mean, I remember I think I must have already been, it was probably the first summer after, yes, I had just come home from college for that first summer break when I started working at Video Concepts. And it was because it was also in Fox Valley Mall, and that was like the high-end place. And somehow we befriended the manager, and they're like, yeah, we'll give you, whatever, limited hours just while you're here. So it was great. And of course, I still feel bad for lying and using the church to, I'd say like, I can't come in on Sunday mornings because it was dead anyway. Everybody was outside. Like, no, I go, we have to, my mom and dad make us go to church. My dad never went to church. I was like, Dad, church. So I come in, but not till like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. They'd be like, all right, we'll put you on schedule on Sundays afternoon. So it was great. I would come in and be like, I can really only work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays afternoon. And those were the prime selling hours. Right. So, I mean, we were walking away with checks that at that age, maybe being 18. I think I was still 18 that first, because I went to school early. I was 17 when I went to college. And so I was probably 17 or 18. And, getting checks for like $3-4 grand from selling big screen TVs and warranties and stuff.
Good money for kids.
So I was like, this is the smart way to do it. So I ended up doing that during the summers. And then when I finished school, I ended up working as a business broker. And it was because there was a guy that worked at Video Concepts, and his cousin, he was Lebanese. His cousin comes in, and somehow they didn't get along. So the guy didn't even help his cousin. So I helped his cousin, Charbel, and Charlie. And so he wanted to get a big screen TV and this and that. And I was like, if you fill out this, you can get credit. And he goes, okay, let me try it. And it was like he'd been in the country for a year. His English was horrible. He puts down that he's a business broker. And I'm like, how's this guy selling businesses? I can't even understand what he's saying. But and then all of a sudden I looked, and he was making like 80, 90 grand a year. Wow. I was like, wait, tell me more about this business brokerage. Come see my boss. He goes, come see my boss. You'd be good at it. So that's how I got hooked up with being a business broker. So we basically sold small businesses. We specialize in selling small businesses, mom and pop businesses, but up to, like anywhere from 10 grand, because that was our commission, was the lowest, or 10%. Was it 10? Yeah, it must have been. I think it was 10 grand or 10%, whatever's going to be more. Is that right? Whatever's going to be less? I don't know. It was at least 10 grand. So even if you had a business that you were trying to get rid of for 20 grand, we'd sell it for 30. We'd keep 10, and but then again, if it was a $500,000 business, we'd get our 50 grand. But it was, of course, split up with amongst the office owners, just like real estate. But it was 10% instead of the traditional 4% or whatever you sell, whatever you get to for selling homes. And that's how I ended up probably committing the cardinal sin of business brokerage, which was finding my own business to buy a gourmet ice cream and coffee shop in Geneva, Illinois.
Right.
So, but yeah, I spent a few years driving around the Chicagoland area, and talking to business owners, seeing if they want to sell their business or if they want to buy another. And it was back then when nothing was really online; everything was in binders, and you take a listing, they come into the office, or we'd run ads in the paper, and people would call in. And it was always very, kind of like not clickbait, but it was like, we'd list businesses that we had, but we wouldn't give out any information until the person came into the office to make sure that they were qualified to buy them. So we would list businesses and we would sell businesses. Right. And that was, I did that, and then found a business that I thought I could do better with, and I did. So I did that for 7 years, and I gained 100 pounds doing it.
Okay. So, so you're not worried about your health at this point because you worry about making money? Was it money on your mind?
Yeah, that's right.
You're busy with business type thing, like.
Yeah. It was trying to grow this gourmet ice cream and coffee shop in the Chicagoland suburbs. Well, I added coffee. I made a great connection with this Greek guy named Nicholas Papanikolaou. He kind of became my mentor.
So that name again? Nicholas Papanikolaou.
Nicholas Papanikolaou. Okay. Slightly Greek.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Nicholas. Yeah. Nicholas Papanikolaou. And, I love that old guy, and I still miss him, but he was like my first mentor. He's the coffee business is still there. His family has it, and their story is an amazing story. Coming from Greece, he was born in the U.S., but they had something. They had a company called Aroma Coffee, so they've been in the coffee business since like the 1800s. Mm-hmm. And then Aroma Coffee, and typical family business. He and his brother had a falling out. His brother Gus kept Aroma Coffee. He started all over again in his 50s in his garage in West Chicago, and within 15 years, 20 years, built up this amazing company that's still in existence, Nicholas Papanikolaou and Sons Coffee. And of course, then the two sons, not to put their business out there, but now they've split up, and so it was like this recurring thing in this family business of gourmet coffee. But I added, and it wasn't Starbucks really wasn't popular then, at least I don't think so. And especially in Geneva, Illinois, because they pretty much had town laws, or that you couldn't, there could not be any franchised businesses there. It had to be independently owned small businesses. So there was definitely no Starbucks there. So I added cappuccino. Yeah, that's kind of how I grew it, and because it's in Chicago and it's a lot of snow, and you're selling ice cream, so you want to sell something in the winter. And we were at a train station, so that helped.
Yep.
And we sold milk in glass bottles and all that. So that was my first business. So of course, then I couldn't continue the business brokerage. And I was also dating the boss's daughter. I remember that.
Well, I was just about to get into the love life thing. I was kind of wondering where that comes into it. Tell me about the boss's daughter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maureen. Yeah. I don't know how. I found she was. I thought well, she was. I'm sure she still is very attractive. And I just remember we started dating, and it was. I always thought like I'd see the people that owned the office, Jim and Sharon Reber, and I was like, how do they spend every day together? Because they're a married couple, they own this office, And I knew, you know, they'd drive in together, they'd work all day together, they would go home, and then all of a sudden one day they go to their home, and there I am. They're like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to hang
Doing
out
some
with your
overtime.
daughter." And so for a while there, and it got a little awkward. So sometimes I get home before they would, back to their place, and they'd be like, "Jesus Christ!" Yeah, so that was kind of weird. I spent the day in the office, and then they'd be kind of like, "Yeah, you know, he's coming over."
Yeah.
But the way I met Nick Papa Nicholas, which you know what, we'd probably all be canceled now, but I don't think people mind hearing this story. He looked like Kojak. I don't know if you remember the character Kojak, who was also Greek, Telly Savalas, and he had no hair. And if you look up Nicholas Papa Nicholas coffee, you'll see, you know, he always wore suspenders, bow tie usually.
I could do that real quick right now, right? I could, because now we've got a
Yeah,
visual thing. I can check it out, right? So Nicholas Papa Nicholas.
yeah. Nicholas Papa Nicholas, or I think it's just under Papa Nick Coffee or Papa Nicholas Coffee. Um, and so if you can find it, yeah. So he was a character,
Right.
and when I bought the ice cream shop, the previous owner that I bought it from, who owned a few Dairy Queens, he said, you know, sometimes Nick will come in here. They're like, you know, he can be a little, and he was trying to tell me like how he was, and I was like, okay, yeah, you know, whatever, you know. He's a really nice guy, but sometimes he comes across a little terse, a little hard. I'm like, okay. So I remember, so I was sitting there at a table, and I had just bought this ice cream shop, or I was in the process of buying it because I worked out a deal with the previous owner, and I'm still learning. And it probably was less. It was I've had it less than a week, and now Maureen is sitting at this table with me, and we're just in there talking, and I hear somebody go and go into the cooler and take out pints of ice cream, the freezer, and bring them over to the counter. And he had 4 pints, you know, that kind of balanced, and he setting them down, and the girl brings them up, and then the price was outrageous. It was $4 a pint,
Right.
which then, you know, when you have Dairy Queen, I don't know if you guys have Dairy Queen.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
The ice milk. Okay. So milkshakes were 80 cents. Our milkshakes were $5. This was unheard of.
Wow.
Pints were $4 a piece. Where anywhere else they were probably $1.50, $2. Half a gallon of milk was I still God, was it $2, which I think was also outrageous at the time. But it was bovine growth hormone free milk. You know, it was kind of before that was all
You could
thing.
taste the quality, I'm sure, right?
100%. Their 1% milk or 2% milk tastes like everybody else's whole milk.
Yeah.
Their eggnog, which I had no idea what eggnog was, and that's why I drink it by the pint, and contributed to my weight gain. I didn't know what it was, but all I knew was it was delicious. So and I still remember he had on this cashmere like sports coat and a scarf and I think he had driving gloves on. He always had Jaguars, and I just hear him. You know, she's like $16. He pays. She's like, "Would you like a bag for that?" And he goes, "No, I'm gonna juggle them all the way home." Yeah, give me a bag. And I was like, because it was kind of harsh, you know. And I'm like, all right. I go, but I was like, in his defense, without even knowing the guy, I'm like, and this all happened behind me. I'm like, you know, she kind of deserved it. And I do remember she had just painted her hair purple. It was when you know, like these bigger pants were in style, like kind of like goth. Is it called goth? I guess it was kind of like gothic. And she was kind of like dressed like a hippie with oversized overalls and big boots, or was she? Or she was probably wearing what are those hippie shoes? Sorry,
Clogs. No, not clogs. I know the big. I think they call them clogs. Yes, like those big high shoes in the '70s type looking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Something that's not very comfortable. But there was a store in our town that sold those, so everyone had them. There were sandals, but even back then they cost like $150.
Right.
They're the very expensive sandals, not the all plastic Crocs. But either way, she was not to judge anyone by how they dress. So
What else can we do?
Gets in the bag.
Yeah.
Put in the bag. What else? And he goes, "You are my kid. I would beat you black and blue. Just like that. And I go, holy hell, this guy is my employee. And I stand up. And I stand up and I kind of turn around and he kind of looks at me and just kind of starts walking past me. And, he's like this tall. He was like 5'3",
Right.
5'4", and I'm like 6 foot. And so he kind of just like walks past me and Maureen's sitting at the table and I'm standing right there. And he looks at her, he kind of looks her up and down and he goes, "Say, you're pretty cute." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, he's my employee. He's not my girlfriend. Like, who the hell is this guy? And then I'm kind of intrigued. I'm like, I kind of have to know who this is. So I'm just like, well, thank you for shopping here. I'm not going to get rid of a customer, just to friend and employee and hit on my girlfriend. And then as he's walking past his coffee display, because I had his coffee up on the wall, he goes, "Say, that's me." And I go, "Holy shit, that's Nicholas Papa Nicholas." That's, the owner of the business. I'm telling you about this guy. So I kind of get up, like, "Oh, Mr. Papa Nicholas, it's so nice to meet you. My name is Paul. I just bought this place." He goes, "Yeah, I know." Something like that. I was like, "Okay." And then he takes my card. He goes, if you ever want to come by the factory, I'll show you around. I'm like, okay. And I do love factories. I love like factories that produce something, like on those shows that make pencils, the machinery that gets, one machine to do something.
Sure.
So I think maybe a week later, I didn't want to appear too desperate. A week later, I showed up, and it was awkward because his sons were like, "Wait, who are you?" And I was young. I was like 23, and I was like, "Oh, your dad and Mr. Papa Nicholas invited me here. He's going to show me around the factory." And they're kind of like, "He is?" And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, unless you guys would like to. They're like, "No." All right. So it was awkward. I sat in his office. It was a very nice office, and just kind of looked at each other. And he was like, "What else?" I go, "Well, you said you'd show me around the factory." He goes, "Okay." So he shows me around his factory, and it was literally like, "That's coffee. This is where we roast it." It's a big factory, but we're walking around. This is Alberto. He works here. And, he just kind of showed me around. And apparently, he never asked guys to come to the factory.
Okay.
Always,
a big deal. And you got that sense of that straight away, right? When you walked in.
Right. It was always, pretty girls that. So they were used to sometimes them showing them. But he was never inappropriate because I hung out with him so many. And when he passed away, it turned out he helped a lot of people, because we'd go to restaurants pretty much every day. I think that also contributed to my weight gain. I discovered tapas, Spanish tapas, and they're rich. And when he passed away, somebody was like, "Yeah, he once helped me out. He gave me like $1,000 because my husband left and my baby." But he was flirtatious, like a gentleman, but
Sure.
never inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
So he and I just really became friends. We almost became inseparable. I think the first time I came to Vegas was with him and his sons, Vaughn and Chris Papa Nicholas. So I kind of became part of the family. I would go there. We'd play cards like most Greeks do, do a little gambling
Sure.
for pennies. And I'd be, sometimes the first one there, and he wouldn't let me leave, and we would just sit around talking,
Nice.
So he kind of became like a second father to me. Yeah, I loved him a lot, and then he passed away. It was tough,
So you mentioned a couple of times he was, he's been your mentor. Obviously, you spent a lot of time together. What's an important thing that you have taken away from that mentorship from him now that he's passed on?
Well, I think the things that a lot of people say, which is a man in his word type of a thing, and also if you don't lie, you don't have to remember your lie. If you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember your lies. And also, he taught me some valuable lessons, like like nothing is really beneath you. Because one time, and he had like 9 things that should have killed him, and everything from he was like a cat, everything from rolling his car when he was a young Marine and breaking his neck, and then having cancer, and that's why he had no hair because all his hair. And he had no sweat glands, so he would overheat very, very quickly. These were all different things that he went for operations and things like that. But I remember one day he asked to use my bathroom, and we didn't have bathrooms. You had to go through our kitchen actually, which I don't think would be allowed anymore. But and all of a sudden he was back there like 15 minutes. I'm like, holy shit, I hope he's okay because. And I didn't, and then I got busy with customers, and I finally, like 20 minutes later, he walks out and he's sweating, he was overheating because he couldn't sweat, but he had his jacket off, and I go, "Are you okay?" He goes, "Your bathroom was filthy." He goes, "I cleaned it for you." And I
Oh,
was like,
right.
"Holy!" It, and I, of course, then I was like, "That'll never happen again."
Mm.
But I was like, "Here's this man." To me, it was like Jesus washing my feet. He cleaned my bathroom, and then I was like, this is like, I always made sure, at least an employee always made sure that it was clean. And I like to call them coworkers, not necessarily employees. I think he taught me the same thing because even the people that worked at the factory were always coworkers. They weren't his employees, And um, there was a story that people thought that somebody was mad at Nick but he was very meticulous like that. The factory you could eat off the floor. It was meticulous. And one day, Vaughn and I were going out to lunch or dinner, which was like a daily thing because they like to do that. And he goes, "I think somebody's mad at my dad." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, I was in the back, and on one of these computer monitors, it said, 'Fuck you, Nick.'" And I was like, "Holy!" So we he had me interpret because they had a lot of Latinos in the back, and everyone's like, "No," he was like, "Well, if he did anything to you guys, just let us know what happened. We're not going to fire you. Just who wrote that?" And they're like, "We didn't write it. Like we don't know. We didn't. He didn't do anything to us. I don't think we've done anything to him. I don't know. I don't know who would. We don't know who would write that." And it was all like kind of family that worked there. So it turned out that Nick wrote it because he walked by and it was dusty, and he'd written "fuck you, comma Nick." So
Oh.
it was his message to say, "Clean this. Don't let it be dirty." And people were like trying to figure out, and I think it finally. Vaughn finally goes to his dad. He goes, "Dad, I just want you to be careful because somebody's mad at you." He's like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, because on the monitor in back it says "fuck you, Nick." He goes, "No, it doesn't. It says "fuck you, comma Nick." He goes, "That should not be." Like, it was like, oh shit, it was Nick. He wrote it himself, but he was saying. So just I don't know if that taught me anything, but it was like just trying to be on point and especially
Well, high quality of
listen.
business, right? It sounds like he set the bars big time. He was confident, knew what he was doing, he was successful, and that's all stuff to look up to, right? Whether something's been said or not, it's kind of like going through life and set the example rather. And you
Yeah,
know, be right in
100%,
saying that.
100%. Yeah, and I do like to listen. It doesn't seem like it tonight, but I like to listen more than I talk. And learning from him was yeah. I mean, to this day, these are things that I carry with me.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, can I ask how long ago did he pass away, and from what?
From cancer, from pancreatic cancer, and this would have been in 98, 99 maybe.
Okay.
I, I was maybe 99. I should probably look it up, and I should know. He was 69 years old, and of course we kidded about that. Um, and yeah, it was he was in the hospital for a while. I went to go see him, and when he was home, I think it was like when did Princess Diana die? I feel like it was around that same.
I was 16 years old, and so that was 24 years ago.
So I think maybe that's when he died
Okay.
because I remember
97 or something.
he
Yeah.
I went to go see him and he was on a lot of meds and he was at home and he was John. He was like you could tell but he goes Pablo and I go yeah. He goes how's the meat business? And I go, oh, it's great, Nick. And then they're like, why do you say? I go, I don't know. So he was either out of it or he was making a joke. I don't know. And I don't know if he meant meat, like MEET or MEAT. But either way, I was, yeah. I think that's when he passed away, and he'd been a Marine, so they had the whole 21 gun salute, and yeah, it must have been right around that time, yeah.
Okay. So, you're going through your ice cream business. We're going to get back to the
Yeah,
ladies in a second. I want to sort of just roughly ask when is the acting and like voiceover work and all that sort of stuff start to come into mind? Is there something you already had an
yeah.
interest in?
Well, you know what? Yeah, because going back to when I decided to buy the business, I remember trying to make a decision. Do I buy this business? Which there wasn't much support like for my dad because it's not something that we do. He had said like he didn't even want me to go to college. He was like, you need to learn like you need to learn how to do HVAC, air conditioning, or you need to become a mechanic or do something that's useful. I'm like, that's not what I want to do though. But I started learning comedy, and I think it was because I'm watching a lot of stand up comedy, and going like, oh, I really want to do this, and maybe being witty, being funny. But then I remember but kind of like not having control of it, just because if you haven't studied, you just mimic what other people are doing.
So to me, I don't know what you mean there. So studied comedy because this is something I'm interested in, right? We've got some comedians sitting here in the listeners here. There's some buddies of ours from Stereo, right? And thank you to the listeners here, by the way, for supporting and listening to the show, Paul Vato, so far. But I do find that some of these guys are so funny, but they're not like real paid comedians, right? Is there some sort of structure that you would have had to study? Is this what you're talking about when you say study? Because
Yeah,
I almost wouldn't
yeah.
think comedy is something that's taught to you. I think it's almost something you have. But due to wittiness, like you said, being sharp and being able to read those moments at that last second, and then somehow tying it into a structure, I guess, would make you a comedian. Is that kind of what you had to learn?
Yeah, but I even made the mistake of not knowing the difference between stand up comedy and improv. So I wound up in improv comedy, studying improvisational comedy. But I remember trying to decide, okay, do I buy this gourmet ice cream and coffee, this gourmet ice cream shop, or do I just start going to Chicago and start doing stand up or learning how to do stand up? And the stand up boom had already happened, but there was still some clubs in the suburbs and especially in Chicago. So I knew I'd have to probably go to Chicago to explore those options. And then it didn't happen for about 4 years later, when the business was kind of operating where I could get away. I talked my mom into coming to help me, so she started helping me at the ice cream shop. My dad would come, and just sweep and mop, and just to not be at home. And he should have been paying me instead of me paying him. And and that's when I then started going into Chicago. But I wound up at first I met somebody, a customer, who she said, and of course I'm sure just trying to be funny and impress her. She goes, I teach at this college. She goes, you're really funny. She goes, you should. She goes, have you considered acting? I was like, no, not really. I go, I'd like to do comedy. I'd like to do stand up. And she goes, you should try acting too. So I took just like a weekend acting course with. I think that and they're still around, Heather Tom and Nicole Tom, Thom. I think that like one of them was in the movie Beethoven, and it was for young actors because I was still kind of young, and I didn't know if it meant we were young or the ones that were young, because they were pretty young. They were like child actors
Right.
that were already like maybe now in their 20s, but. And I remember taking that, and it was very enjoyable. And then through there, I found out a little bit about improv. So I remember driving to another town to study once a week to kind of learn improv. But it was almost just like out of a book, Viola Spolin's Theater Games, or that the quintessential improv book. And then from there, then finding out about the Improv Olympic in Chicago. And for those of you that don't know, the Improv Olympic is where like Mike Myers studied, but which a lot of people would study at Improv Olympic, and Chris Farley, Tim Meadows, Rachel Dratch, Tina Fey, they studied at the Improv Olympic and then would move on to Second City, because at Second City you got paid. So most people think that all these comedians came out at the Second City, which they did, but most of them really started, or at least studied, at the Improv Olympic. Seth Meyers and his brother Josh Myers. And then, from there, they either go to Second City or to Saturday Night Live, or to, if you go to West Coast, you go to Mad TV type of a thing. So I wound up at the Improv Olympic just not knowing the difference between stand-up comedy an improvisational comedy. And I'd already written the check because back then we would write checks. And I remember Sharna. She was like, introduce yourself while you're here. And I was like, I'm Paul. I think I probably already went by Paul Vato. Yeah, I did because it was a nickname given to me by college friends. So I want to learn how to do stand up. She's like, well, we don't teach stand up. We teach improv comedy. And I was like, well, I've already paid for it, so you know what? I guess teach.
So just for the listeners, there's other listeners on other platforms right now. I'm sure on my Facebook, there's a lot of people that don't really understand the difference between improv and stand up. Maybe you're better to give the breakdown than me because you'll probably say in more detail. Can you just give the difference so that people know just how hard improv can be on the spot?
Sure, of course. Well, and improv is traditionally done with an ensemble, but I mean, it could be two people. You and I could do an improv show, or maybe three people. But realistically, it's traditionally done with a group of 5 to 7 people. We do something called a herald, which is long form improvisational comedy, and it was because of a lack of a name. There was an improv group or sketch group called the Committee in San Francisco, and they were like, well, what do you call this? And they said, well, we call it Herald, because I think the Beatles at the time they'd asked them what their haircut was called, and they're like, it's called Arthur. So they thought it'd be funny to just call this long form improv, call it the Herald. And the difference is, stand up is traditionally done, one person on stage, a routine that's been practiced ad nauseum until it's pretty perfect, and where you're going to get the laughs, or or you're working on it. Sometimes it's done with 2 people, but it's traditionally something that's been rehearsed and done in front of people, and it's just you on stage, you in the audience, which that in and of itself is an art form, and kind of scares me a bit, and I've not done enough stand up at all. And then improv, it's more of a theater show, so I think it can be more forgiving because you're not going to get heckled, in a theater setting.
Sure.
Will be promptly taken care of. Where and there's different levels of like stand up. With stand up, it's like, oh, you're so funny, and your friends all think that you're funny, and you can make your friends laugh. And then there's making strangers laugh, which people that you just met, and if you're clicking with them, you can make them laugh. Or you just go to your punchline setup, and they set up punchline, and they laugh, and then there is making people in a nightclub laugh, and then there is making people that are paying in a nightclub laugh, and then people that are paying that are drunk in a nightclub laugh. So
right, yeah, and it's just levels, man. Yeah,
you're like, warrior. Yeah, and then improv is there's drinking involved, but once people give their suggestion, they're kind of meant to be quiet and just laugh and applaud when it's warranted. And again, it's a group of 5 to 6 or 7 improvisers, men and women, and you're making it up on the spot from one suggestion. But there are the tips and tricks that you learn,
right?
And it's not about trying to be funny. It's not about going for the laughs. It's not about going for the jokes. It's usually it's based in truth, And Sharna and Dal Close and Kim Howard Johnson wrote a book called Truth in Comedy, which for the longest time was kind of the improv Bible, which is still in production. But I know that the UCB, the Upright Citizens Brigade, also wrote a book, which is a little bit more modern, maybe from 10 years ago. So if anyone that wants to get into improv, they should definitely read those books. So I hope that makes sense as far as the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, yeah, and I'm sure it does to listeners. Just because again, I know we've got some funny people in the audience here listening that I've experienced over in stereo. So this is also a good little tip for them to take away too, maybe to build a career, because I certainly think there's a couple that I could see that should be up on stage doing their gigs. But sorry, back to you now for you going through that process. Then, so you're going to school now. You've written the check, so you're having to learn improv comedy. How's that going for you?
Great. I look back and I'm like, how did I ever do it? And I guess it's because I was much younger, but because sometimes I would, the business was open at, I think we would open at 6 or 7 a.m. Because there was a 7:05 train. So probably 6:30 for that 7:05 train. And so sometimes if I had to open, I would go open and then, be there for 10 hours and then drive into Chicago to go study improv. And I don't remember what days it was, but it was, at least once a week. But then I remember it must have been on a Saturday that I was it a Saturday? Maybe it was a Thursday or Friday. It was probably on a Thursday because my weekends were busy and I don't think I'd give up a weekend at work. And so it must have been like on a Thursday. And then they're like, if you want to do this improv, I suggest, come and watch as much improv as you can. We have a great show on Monday night called the Armando Diaz Theatrical Experience in Hootenanny. And it was basically a monologist tells a story and then people improvise based on those stories. The monologist takes a suggestion. And from that suggestion, starts, telling a story about his life and true stories, and then the improvisers use that instead of doing almost improv games. That is where they're getting their ideas from, and then they start creating these
Right.
scenes. And I saw that and it blew me away. And I think the monologist the first night I still remember was Abby Shack, and she's I remember she's from Ohio. Her dad's a dentist. This was 25 years ago, and it was like, whoa, like she was just so good. And then what the people did with all that information was amazing. And I was like, how did they do that? I definitely want to learn how to do that. And I think that's what gets people. And then you realize that there are tricks to it. You're like, how did these characters come back? You're like, oh, okay, because they're supposed to. We're doing three beats, scenes A, B, and C. Beat number two is then A, B, and C comes back, and then beat number three, it comes back again, and hopefully you get, and that's called the herald, and it's a lot of times when people hear of improv, they think of short form improv, which is improv games, like Whose Line Is It Anyway,
Yeah.
and that's improv, but like Del Close, who was the improv guru, used to say that's like walking on a tightrope that's 6 inches off the ground, so there's no danger there,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's being done on television. Because all right, cut. Let's do it again. Let's do another version, and then they could do it 10 times. Then they take the best one, and oh my god, they were brilliant each time.
Sure.
And all these guys are great. Because they're also, I think, long form improv artists.
Yep.
Wayne Brady and Colin Mockery and all Ryan Stiles. They're brilliant long form improv people. But you put up a solid show for television, and so Del Close was there at the beginning. He was they call himself the metaphysician for Saturday Night Live in that first season because Belushi had studied with him, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, all these people had studied with Del Close, and then that's when they went off to form Saturday Night Live. They came to the Second City and took all that talent. I think they'd already done like the National Lampoon show, Belushi, and and that whole season one of Saturday Night Live. How many ever years ago? 45 years ago, whenever that was.
Right.
So Del Close was instrumental, and for me, he was like this mythical figure because I never met him until I don't know a year later when I finally started when I got to his level because there were 5 levels. So yeah, it must have been a year later, and I was like, does this guy even exist? Does the guy Armando Diaz even exist? I'm like, is this a big scam? Like, and it is, improv's a little, it can be a little culty, but it's a good cult. It's the cult of improv. It's the power of yes and
Sure.
agreement and addition. And I ended up applying a lot of that to my life, to business, and that's what I'm trying to do now is actually bring it all together. And do a course or do something that brings improv, power of improv, and entrepreneurship or business, things like that. But there's a great documentary, and I'm not just saying it because it turns out I'm in it, but called For Madmen Only, and it's basically Del Close in the Chicago years, from like '85 to the late '90s. He has a comic book called Wasteland, and they say that all the secrets of improv comedy or comedy are in those. I think he just said that so he could get people to buy his comic books. But,
Where can we find that documentary?
it's streaming. I think the last time when I watched it, it was on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
So it's called For Madmen Only, or look up Del Close, DELCLOSE. And you'll kind of get a little peek into his mind. But I studied with him by mistake 2 times in a row. I went, so I started studying at the Improv Olympic, and I went through their whole program. And then we were supposed to take this guy named Noah Gregoropoulos for like 5A, and then Del Close was supposed to be kind of like your master class, 5B. But I didn't really know because I was around, but I had a business to run too, and I'd already gotten into cigars by that time. So a lot of times I would leave in the morning and do my cigar route as I drove into the city. I loved leaving the house with no money in my pocket and a trunk full of cigars. And then by the time I got to Chicago, I'd have a pocket full of money and no cigars. I don't know.
That's a good business model. And nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I can survive if I need to. And when I finally studied with Dell, I signed up for him by mistake for 5A. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, for 5B, you're going to be taking Del Close. And I almost said like, oh, well, I just took him. And I'm like, well, no, just sign up for Del again. Oh my God, this guy's a improv genius, a guru. Sign up with him again. So I ended up taking him for 2 sessions.
Right.
And then about 6 months, maybe a year later is when he passed away. And we were all at the hospital. And that's why I'm in the documentary, because there's footage of us at his going away party when he passed away.
Right.
So I started studying at the Improv Olympic and realizing that that was kind of what I wanted to do. And I remember I was on the golf course with some friends, and I got a phone call saying it was an intern at the Improv Olympic, and they were like, we can't guarantee you, because I'd already been put on a house team or on a team. I don't remember if we were a house team or what the difference was, but I know that we'd already formed a few improv teams, which rarely ever last more than a few months. We were called Thirsty Turtle. I do remember that.
Super.
We were rehearsing.
Thirsty Turtle.
Thank you. Do we explain what a thirsty turtle is, or just let people figure it out?
No,
I don't know how dirty we
can. You can go as dirty as you want on my podcast. That's fine. Yeah, go for it. Thirsty turtle. Let's do it.
So, those of you that don't know, a thirsty turtle is what it looks like when you're trying to take a poop into the toilet. And so we were called. That's all I remember. We were called Thirsty Turtle. And then I get this phone call saying we can't guarantee you a spot on a team if you're not taking a class. I'm like, I've already taken all the classes. What am I supposed to do? And I don't know. Talk to Sharna. I'm like, all right. So that was actually the impetus for me to put together a Latino improv sketch group. Improv and sketch group. So I started looking around, and I was like, wow, there really are not a lot of Latinos here. There was this guy, Armando Diaz, whom I'd met, but he'd already been around for 10 years. He was, Horatio Sands was around, but he was kind of almost on his way to Saturday Night Live. So any of the Latinos that were there were already well established, and they're not going to want to do a new show, an upstart group. So I just started putting my feelers out there, and Keith Privet, who was our first director, or our director while I was there, said, "Hey, there's this young lady, Tilda Del Toro. He goes, she just came into me with the same thing. She wants to put together a Latino improv group." And because there really weren't any, I mean, there was Stir Friday Night, which was the Asian group. There was Gayco, which was and it was Gayco because at Second City there was Redco, Blue Company, Red Company, Green Company, I think, and there were Gayco. There were the Gay Company. There were Weeby Negroes, OUI, and they were the African American group. And damn it, I was supposed to say there were the Polish group, and then there was no. And then so I'm like, you know what? We need a Latino improv group. So we found out just the people that were in Chicago doing improv, and there weren't many of us, especially Chicago being the improv mecca of and it's not like we were being kept out. It was just it wasn't on our radar.
Sure.
It wasn't on the Latino radar. And it was, every year, like Shakira was happening, Ricky Martin was happening. So it was, this is the year, there's a Latin explosion this year.
Yeah.
We are hiring Latinos, which 25 years later is still not happening. So we put together this group called Salsation, and we wrote a hit show called Touched by an Anglo, which Touched by an Angel was on at the time. And we have, irreverent sketches. I'm curious to see if it would work today, because a lot of it was pretty irreverent. We had, Who Wants to Be an American Citizen instead of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. because what's more important, what's worth more than a million, and the more questions you answered, the high. We went from green card to visas to full on citizenship. The Indian guy won, and you can go to YouTube and watch. So they did a documentary on salsation. If you go to paulvato.com and go to my YouTube channel, you can always kind of watch it. It's pretty interesting. So I put together. Tilda and I put together this group, and we had our growing pains. I don't know how much you want to hear about that, but we ended up going down to Austin, Texas, to do the Big Stinking Improv Festival, and then
Let's hear about the growing pains. I mean, it's important for people to know what you have to go through to do these sort of things. I'm sure people we know there's hard work behind it. We know it's a hard industry to get into when you're doing anything, acting, podcasting, improv work for comedy shows or whatever. But I'd love to hear what the teething problems are.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love talking about it because there were these growing pains of, and it harkens back to Improv Olympic and Second City's different schools of thought. Improv Olympic, improv in and of itself is the art form. It's like jazz, where people will come, but the problem is not a lot of people come. The people that come are other improvisers. On the weekends, yeah, you'll have traditional audiences in your theater because it's the weekend. People are looking for things to do. Second City uses improv as a tool to create long form, to create sketches. So they use improv to make these great sketches that will always work and usually will always work in front of an audience, just like Saturday Night Live, or Mad TV or any of these sketch shows. So when we started, we were an improv group. And then, as maybe a year goes by and we were just doing a lot of rehearsing because we don't want to embarrass ourselves because it's also not like, oh, well, they're just the Latino improv group and that's why they got this chance. They're not even that good. No, we want it to all be good. And so maybe there's a historian that would actually, Ramon Charias, who actually is better at the history, but we must have been doing it for about a year. So we're going to, in order to get to these bigger improv festivals like Austin, Texas, they want to see a tape. So we need to start doing sketches. And half the group was like, no, we're an improv group. We don't do sketches. And the other half is like, well, no, because in order to advance, we need to learn how to do sketches. We have to be proficient at sketches, just like Second City. And I think by that time, I had already been through the program at Second City, and I'm like, yeah, it's 100% right. We have to do sketch. So we lost half the group, and so maybe now we're down to like 3 or 4 performers, and then slowly had to rebuild with other people that wanted to do sketch. And if you watch the documentary, Ricky Carmona, who I recently saw like on Tosh.0, so he's done great for himself and he does stand up. He was like, when he saw our success, he was like, oh man, I should have stuck with him. And he would have always been welcome, but it was, they stuck to their guns.
Bit of shame for leaving. It's like, no, I said, no, I can't join back because it's like losing face in a way.
Yeah, but we would have loved them. Have them all back, but I just like that we didn't embarrass ourselves, so we set out, we were offered, I wonder if we were offered down in Pilsen, which is a traditional Latino neighborhood. I think we started rehearsing our show there first, and Latinos weren't really familiar with it, so they ate it up. I mean, it was, we had such funny sketches, and the thing is, it wasn't all like, because Chicago is very Mexican American or Puerto Rican, which are Americans, because Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. But we also had like one guy that was Colombian, half Pakistani. We had Sandra, who was like Chicana from Texas. So we were, we wanted, we had Sean, what was his name? Sean was his first name. Cordovez, who was maybe Cuban. So I was trying to put together a group that had one of each. And I think at one point I thought that'd be a good name, one of each. But we ended up going with Salsation, which is a song in one of the Bee Gees albums, maybe the Saturday Night Fever album. And then we were offered at Second City. They have an experimental theater. Well, they have experimental theater company, ETC, and then they have Donnie's Skybox. So that was the smallest theater, which they said, hey, send us an audition tape, and if we like it, we'll give you like a month run. So we were like, great, we did it. They loved our show. I think they maybe came down to see us down in Pilsen, loved the show, gave us a month, and we broke all records. And they were like, it's not theater season, so it's going to be kind of weird to open a show that's not theater season. We're like, you know what? Latinos don't know what theater season is. And they didn't. So they came to see us and would bring friends. And every week, it was once a week, and we were sold out. I can't remember if it was Fridays or Saturdays. I think it was Saturdays. And we were sold out. And 1 month turned into 2 months, then 3 months, then
Wow.
6 months. So we ran and broke all sorts of records there. And then
what's that feeling like, Paul? What's that feeling when you put in all the hard work, you put that team together, and you're starting to succeed, right? Fame's coming your way now. How are you handling like that? Because I see, and I just wanted to quickly use an example of, we've grown on the Stereo app podcasting with people that just everyday people that join Stereo, and you see some people elevate through the way, and you see how their persona kind of changes. Like for the most part, they get more professional, and some things they don't go down that track anymore with things that they say, and others don't know how to handle that, right? They kind of fall apart because there's a growth when you're starting to get more and more popular with these things. So I wonder what that was like for you.
Well, I mean, it felt great because also me not coming from a theater background, it was kind of a quick rise, but it was because we put in the hard work. But almost knowing, because the show was so finely tuned that we knew where we were getting laughs, and it was just like a Second City show. I mean, it was anywhere from the title of Touched by an Anglo, because that show Touched by an Angel was on, and having that recurring through line where I played Denise, who was a big black woman, but with like a skunk stripe in her hair, gray hair, and we had this whole through line of the Touched by an Anglo, and I can't even remember what it was, but there were some powerful sketches in there, like Who Wants to Be an American Citizen, and it kind of commentary on what's more important than $1 million is this to be able to get American citizenship, and our closing number, which again I don't even know if we could do that today, and I don't know if it would make sense to you because it's kind of a derogatory term towards people that come that sneak across the border. But we were the Wetback Street Boys,
right?
And we a song called "The Ode to the Hoochie Mama." And
I don't get that, but it still gets laughs these days. There you go.
It does, yeah. It does, but I don't think it could ever be on TV, and it wouldn't be other Latinos. Latinos would think it's hilarious.
So how do you feel about that, Paul? How do you feel about this whole cancel culture that's going on with, because the biggest effect it has is with comedy. I think with this whole cancel culture thing. So what are your thoughts on, not to veer from the story too much, but just because, there's simple things that come up like this, you don't know if you can say it, we don't know if it's popular today because it's robbing those laughs of people because of cancel culture. Your thoughts?
Right. I feel like it has no place in comedy, especially in comedy. I mean, but then again, I think because I'm older and, it's those things like, wait, what? Words? Wait, somebody said something that hurt your feelings? Like, all right, well, trust me, I've heard it all. I had a video go viral, 15 years ago. A commercial where I photocopy my butt and I fall into the copier.
Is that you?
Horrific things. That's me.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
oh wow!
It was a commercial for Netscape Navigator, and the thing said, and even so, 15 years ago, I was like, okay, yeah, you can't take any of this serious because they were lumping all Americans in together, and they were like, oh, Americans are so stupid, all they're doing is donut and photocopy their ass. This guy's a real moron, and you're like, oh yeah. I go, and I felt great because I was like, they think it's real. I go, this is a commercial, I mean, so for me, it was like, well, I guess my acting was good enough to convince people that it was real. So, and then people like, the acting is horrible. Look at the way he looks around. Like security cams don't have audio. That's a Matt TV sketch. That's a Saturday Night Live sketch. So yeah, I don't think, man. But it's tough because you never want to punch down, and we were making fun of ourselves and our culture, so we felt like we could say that. because a wetback is usually an illegal immigrant from Mexico
Right.
because they swam across the
Oh,
border,
okay.
but they didn't swim across because the river is so low you can walk across the river.
Yeah.
If anyone, people that came from Europe, they had a whole ocean crossing just across the river. So, but it's a derogatory term,
Sure.
But so the Backstreet Boys were around. We're like, well, it was either the Wet Backstreet Boys or N Cinco, So either I thought the Wet Backstreet Boys were more offensive, so we that, of course. And each one of us, I was a prisoner. We had a maid. We had a landscaper. We had the Rico Suave guy, the very smooth guy. So all the stereotypes that when you think of
Sure.
but touching back on cancel culture, you have to give us, I think, as comedians and satirists, a break, because I also think that if you're just being a shitty person and you're crapping on somebody that's that you're punching down, whether it's a culture or somebody that's disabled, or anything anything that's too easy, then. And not to say that see, even that's kind of hard to say.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's hard to even define that. I totally get what you mean. It's
But if you're a shitty comedian, you're not going to make it, regardless, because even if you are doing something that might be offensive to some people, sometimes you have to sacrifice one for the good of many, and that's probably not the right thing. But you can't stop doing comedy because it offended just one group person. But if you're just evil and bad, you're not. So ultimately, is it funny? I think we have to ask ourselves: is it funny? And then I think it's okay. But as comedians, we don't know, because we know where the line is. I think everyone knows where it's at, but we're constantly going past. You want to go a little bit past it, and then sometimes you go too far, or sometimes maybe somebody will just take a little clip, and Paul kept saying wetback, wetback, and it's over and over, and then you take it out of context, and they just play that. You're like, well, you didn't hear the whole show.
Yeah, the context around it, correct.
This part was part of this whole piece. I mean, I guess maybe it has to exist, but because then how far would it go? But I mean, free speech, but just because it's was it free speech doesn't mean that it's free from consequence.
I just think that there's things that people say that offend people, and that's okay. It might not be nice, that might hurt their feelings, but maybe the intent's not bad. Or if someone is going out to hurt their people's feelings all the time, and it's offensive, then that person's an asshole, and they're not going to get that following that they're trying to require, right? So they're just going to be labeled as an asshole. But if someone's cracking that odd joke, and especially in comedy sketches, let it go. Fuck cancel culture is what I say. Fuck it,
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, you guys have, what's his name, Jim Jeffries, who does like this brilliant piece on his friend with multiple sclerosis, or taking him to see a prostitute, and it's like, oh, how did he get around about that, but the way it's crafted, the way it's done, he makes valid points, and it's done in an entertaining way. So yeah, I say fuck cancel culture as well, but I just don't ever want to be a hypocrite. And I used to, I would have talks with this guy named Mick Napier, who runs the Annoyance Theater, and he would, because I would, these were in the early years, and I was like, well, how do you feel about, can you make fun of anything? He goes, yeah, you can. And and the thing is, it's like I want to do that to my dying breath. Where then, if all of a sudden, I get sick, I'm like, oh well, no, now you can't make fun of that because I'm sick. I would feel like that was hypocritical.
Sure.
I want to keep doing it, whether it's happening to me, then it's okay. But now, if I'm going to change my mind, we're like, whoa, you can't talk about Latinos like that.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Rise out of it, but I don't mean it.
Yeah.
Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Sure. It's like we have roast shows sometimes where the host will be up there and it's like roast, and we clarify like we're called a roast here, yeah. When there's other roast shows on another app or whatever, And I have to just check in just to make sure, because I'm going to say some offensive things as a joke, totally as a joke, and I want them to go and get an upset reporting and, crying to their mum's teeth. So
Right.
and they still do sometimes, right? They still actually get upset, even though they've clarified it's cool. So people are just a little bit too sensitive, and they need to grow some hair on their chest. I think anyway. But
well, I'm sure we're sitting here looking at each other, going like, "I've got some things I can say."
yeah,
Maybe it's just me.
I want to unleash, but we're holding back for the podcast, So, yeah, no, okay, so not a problem. All right, so you start. So you're going through, you're getting success. This is a good thing. You're building popularity, and are you hitting the marks that you want to in sort of the entertainment world now with comedy and acting? Or the acting hasn't really come into it yet, actually, has it? Or it is?
Well, just the stage show, but I think that I obviously must have brought out an agent and no manager yet, but I know then I met who recently I reconnected with her, and she's representing me again in Chicago because now you can audition from anywhere. But Susan Acuna a show with Encore Talent, and so I know she signed a few of us, and I remember getting on a TV show called What About Joan, which was basically the Joan Cusack show, and we had already decided to come to LA to do a show, and we were again same thing. We're going to come out to LA. Do the show for maybe a month, and then just feel it out, kind of for like pilot season, and then go. You know what? We'll do the show. We'll feel out LA. We'll come back to Chicago. We'll work on another show, or because kind of like what Second City does is so that they never close. So the plan was really to take Touched by an Anglo, and then you start taking out sketches and you start replacing them with other sketches, and then eventually the show just evolves into something else. And you come up with another name, and it's a brand new review. But it slowly evolves so that the show's always solid. Mm-hmm. So I think that was really the plan. And I think we actually even put up a show called, because we were so upset that there was a Latin explosion, so we call it "There's a Latin Explosion in My Pants," because it was kind of you to that. It was, but there wasn't. It was Kira and Ricky Martin, and that was kind of it, and it never really happened. We took our idea, even when we were in LA, we took our idea to the networks, and they're like, well, it's a Latino show. Take it to Univision, which these are the I call them the Mexican channels until I realized. Growing up in a Mexican household, you're like, oh, yeah, it's the Mexican show, the Mexican channel. But they're actually Spanish channels from all over Latin America, Univision, Telemundo, all these. And when we would take it to them, they'd say like, well, no, you guys are gringos. Like, this isn't for us. Like, you guys, it's all in English. We're like, well, yeah, but they don't want. So we're kind of walking, we're in the middle. We're stuck in the middle, like, too Latino for mainstream America and not Latino enough for our people in Latin America. Mm-hmm. So we just, like, we'll just keep going and see what comes of this. So then half the group was like, well, we're staying in Chicago, and, Amr, who's the one that's half Pakistani and half Colombian, he's a pharmacist. He can't just up and leave. He just can't up and leave. Yeah. And other people just were like, no, we're going to stay in Chicago. If you need us, call us. And we were like, yeah, of course. We'll, when we get there, we'll lead the way and then we'll call you. But once, kind of like when I left Hollywood, out of sight, out of mind, it's like, why would I call you when there's plenty of people in this sphere that are such great actors? Had we probably gotten the show right away, we would have said like, everyone move out. Mm-hmm. So in Chicago, I got in the show What About Joan? And so that was kind of my first taste of a sitcom. Of course, it was promptly canceled. Never came back for season 2. I think I was in the season finale. Then I was supposed to be coming back, and the show got canceled, and rightly so. It was bad. But it and then now that I've gone back on IMDb, a lot of the Chicago improvisers did the show. I never worked with them, but they'd been on the show throughout the year, or maybe it was 2 seasons. I don't remember. So of course the group that stayed in Chicago, they're like, well, but you can't call it Salsation because it's not Salsation. It's just 3 of you moving to LA. So it was Joe Nunez, it was Diane Herrera, Joe Nunez, and myself. And we're like, all right, well, we'll it's just like improv. We'll come up with something. Don't worry about it. So we ended up going with the name Barrio Speedwagon, which again, it's And so we went with Mario Speedwagon. And to this day, young people just look at you blank. They're like, okay. You're like, okay, yeah, you're too young. You don't know. And so we kept the show Touched by an Anglo by Barrio Speedwagon, and we took it to the Improv Olympic. I think it already opened in Hollywood. So we were in Hollywood, and the same thing. Hey, let's do it for a month, and a month turned into 2 months, then 3 months, then I think 4 months, and we're just like, we've got something here. And I was able, we were all able to get management. We got a manager, we got a theatrical agent and a commercial agent. Well, I had one agent; she did both, Susan Nathy, and yeah. So we signed. We're like, all right, well, they were like, you guys are staying here, right? We're like, yeah, yeah, because our plan was to go back. And I sold everything. So I sold the ice cream shop. I sold everything, my cigar routes, everything. So I was like, I don't have to go back. So we just stayed.
Are you making good money along the way with doing these shows?
Not really. I can't even. I mean, just barely making them. So we were either working, but we started. I booked like 6 months there. I booked a Del Taco, which is like Taco Bell. I don't know if you guys have. You probably don't have Del Taco, but fast food, Mexican fast food campaign. So I ended up doing like 8 commercials for them, and I was like, maybe it was even sooner than 6 months. But I was like, how is this hard? Like, this is easy.
Yeah.
Of course, I started too soon because then, things dry. I've gone back since through my records, and it was like, oh, yeah, there it is. Year 1, I did like 1 gig. Then year 2, couple gigs. Then year 3, 3 gigs. And you can see how it's getting bigger and bigger. I was on a soap opera for a month, so I think a couple months. So that helped. I was on Bold and the Beautiful because I'm both. Bold and the Beautiful.
Right. Because you're bold and you are beautiful.
And it was always, and when we moved there, Joe Nunez had worked with a young lady, and her mom lived in Baldwin Hills, what they call the Black Beverly Hills. They took us in, and I think we each paid $300 a month, which was nothing in rent. Even then, I'm sure rents were $600-700 a month. So we kind of had this not mansion, but this really big, beautiful home. Pearl, is it Perla or Pearl? She was Jamaican. She had her side of the house, and her husband had passed away. So Diane had her bedroom. Joe Nunez and I don't know if we shared a room or so there wasn't a lot of privacy. But I think we were each paying $300 maybe, which was nothing. She let us use her car, so we weren't living by all means extravagant. And I'd had a little bit of money put away, so it was. Yeah, that, and then just booking a few gigs here and there helped, and I would sell cigars to celebrities. I would sell. I think the what's it called? The statute of limitations is long gone, but I would sell Cuban cigars to celebrities. Celebrities that way.
Right. Okay, awesome. Okay.
I'd love to leave the house with no money and come home with money in my pocket.
The cigar business sounds all right. It sounds like it was at least good back then. You're making some money from cigars, easily selling out your stock.
Well, I would say that my joke has always been, I sold cigars to support my acting habit. So, yeah.
I like that. Okay, so where does your career start to take you from this point now?
Well, it was. We were, kind of working actors. I did shows. I mostly sketch. After I must have done something funny before. Maybe no. Maybe it was like, oh, maybe I'm meant to be like a soap opera. But I was a bad guy. I had long hair. Which I have again. But being Latino, I was cast as the bad guy at the soap opera. I had a big machete and I kidnapped Ron Moss. I kidnapped him, and so I was like, well, if I do soap operas for the rest of my life, that's great too. But then I ended up, what did I get booked on first? You know what? I'll have to go through my records. But Mad TV, yeah, which was I don't know if you guys have it there or not, but it's a sketch comedy show.
We don't have it. Just for some reason, I recognize that name. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of based on Mad Magazine, and it was a very irreverent Saturday Night Live show, which Saturday Night Live was always on Saturdays, live. Matt TV was also on Saturdays, but usually pre-recorded. But it could be pretty current, like, because sketches could they were maybe recorded that week and then aired that weekend. So, but who Will Sasso was there, who's a brilliant Canadian comedian. He has a podcast he had a podcast called 10 Minute Podcast with Chris D'Elia and what's his name from the Goldbergs.
Did it go for 10 minutes?
So, what's that?
Did it go for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That's such a short podcast.
Yeah. Well, my podcast, the Super Secret Celebrity Show, goes for 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And I can tell you.
It's a bit like your love life then.
Yeah.
It's
I wish. Hey, if you're not satisfied, have a Snickers.
Okay, so yes, okay, so you're getting into it all there, and we kind of missed that a little bit. Your love life along the way. Have you been married before, or?
Well, my love life has literally slipped through my fingers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get a chance to get into relationships and stuff because of what you were doing?
Yeah, no, it was never really not really my choice. No, but I must have dated. I'm sure I dated a few people. I know that I left a girl when I was in Chicago, and I remember coming back like 3 months later, going back to Chicago, and going like, holy shit, I think I had a girlfriend when I left. And I was like, who the hell is it? And I couldn't for the life of me remember. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go hang out at the bar that we used to hang out in. When I see her, I'll remember. I don't know what was wrong with me. And sure enough, she walks in. I'm like, ah! And it kind of went back. This is when I'd go back to Chicago.
What was that about? You literally couldn't remember who she was?
I guess not. Yeah, I don't know.
Too much was going on in your life before that?
I remember going back to Chicago and going like, who was I dating when I left? And it had gotten pretty serious. And it was only like maybe 6 months later. I don't know. I was just like, and I could not for the life of me remember. Maybe there were a few, but there was one that had been kind of serious. And it was it's the weirdest thing. Thinking back is like, I don't know what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
But then later on, towards 2007, I met Sarah, and we ended up getting married, and now we're divorced. But she was the one that was like, you should have your own cigar, instead of selling other people's cigars. And then we met the owner of a casino, Binion's Casino, and he wanted somebody to come and sell him cigars in Vegas to his gift shops and things. And it was at the bottom of the economy, so houses were next to nothing. Bought a house in Vegas for almost nothing, and so ended up moving to Las Vegas. We were living on our boat in Marina del Rey. Years later, brought the boat out to Vegas, and then got rid of that. But so it was basically Sarah. I think she would have been. I'm trying to think of who I dated when I was in LA. I think it was never. I don't think there was ever anything serious.
So how long are you married for?
About 11 years, 12 years.
And did you split up recently or a while back?
Like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years.
And so 11 years is quite a long time, to be married. And so how was that affect on you with the divorce and having to split up?
Yeah, it's tough because I just assumed that we'd be together, and it was my only time being married. And it was kind of, I like to joke around and say, my parents were, they were together until my dad died. My mom's still around, and I like to say like, well, they were miserably together. They never split up. They probably weren't happy, but they never split up. So I just assumed that we would be together. But it's tough, man. Vegas is not an easy place to live and do business, and the hours are long. It's not a very healthy lifestyle. So it just she wasn't happy, and I didn't see that. And we bought a house in LA. We have a place here in Vegas, and we just she just was spending more and more time in LA. She grew up in LA. She's from Chicago, like I am. As a matter of fact, I think it's her birthday on Monday. So we were exactly like 10 years apart. We both lost a parent on September 18th, same day, 1 year apart. Just like really weird things, both from Chicago. So I just thought it was going to be something that was going to last forever, but it didn't. So what are you going to do?
Life sometimes, of course, you can't help these things sometimes. Sometimes you can, but I was just wondering how that affected you in any way. Was it, I'm not sure who broke it off, but 11 years, regardless if it was you that wanted to break it off, is a long time to stop being with someone when you've built so much of your life together, and you kind of make your whole world as one. To then be split, it's an odd thing, regardless, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if we would have survived COVID, because this happened right before COVID. So, like 2 year, like exactly almost like 2 years ago. So, um, yes, in a way, she was in LA, I was here. So going through COVID and the business was closed. So yeah, just a lot of, just a lot of shit all at the same time. But you have to kind of keep going. But I discovered social audio, and that's been, I think, a godsend just for getting me back into acting and things like that. So yeah, it's tough, but I'm surviving.
sure. So you've built a bit of a following on another social media app, right? Um,
Yeah.
and you're brand new to it. What, it wasn't even 2 years ago, was it? It was just
No,
over a year and a bit.
a year and a bit, and it was because I don't even know if we're allowed to say other ones, but why not,
Yeah, why
right?
not? I mean, we're talking about it. We're on Fireside. This is our place that we choose to come, right? But there are other apps out there, but nothing that Fireside has to, like what Fireside has to offer. That's for sure. I'll just give them a little plug.
Yeah, no, of course, and I love Fireside, but I somehow stumbled onto Stereo,
Hmm.
and it was when, and it was probably because a lot of either a comedian told me about it, or there was a young lady, Kagel, Kristen Kristen Gull, I think is her name, and maybe through Facebook or something, I found out about Stereo, and I've done radio, so and I was on a radio show in LA, which I didn't mention, called the Pocho Hour of Power, which Pocho is also kind of a derogatory term towards Latinos that are not very in touch with their Latino side. Like if you went to Italy, if there was a word, it would mean like somebody who's, well, I'm gonna say Americanized, but you would be what, Australianized,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
in
Australiano, we
touch with,
call it. Australiano. Yeah.
what do you call yourself?
Australiano.
Australiano.
Why not?
Sì, molto bene. Sì, sì. Io parlo italiano. Sì. And so I do this show called the Pocho Hour of Power, and it's the host is a very well-known political cartoonist named Lalo Alcaraz, and he's done a few shows on cartoon shows on television, and so Stereo really, I was like, oh, this is great, and it was kind of monetized right away. Where if you're in the top, I think I barely, I mean, I finished in the top 100 and still got like $100.
All right, you
It
got
was
paid
something
for the
great.
leaderboard. That's great. They had a great system before where people would they'd go in, they'd podcast, people would do so many hours with as much good content as they could to end up on the leadership board, and the payouts were crazy, right? Like I think, was it the first place was $100,000, but you had to have something like 10,000 people come through your show or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember. I seem to recall that there was a 10,000, and then 5,000, and then like 1,500. But even if you finish in the top 100, they still give you like
That's
$100.
right.
So I was like, so it was for me, it was a minimum amount of work. I could do it just a few hours a day, and not even that many days a week, and all of a sudden have $100. I was like, so I did that, and until they changed it and said you have to be verified, and I couldn't
Ah,
get verified because I've never been verified on any other social media, because I never realized the importance of social media, because when you have a bricks and mortar store, people are going to come in no matter what, and
mm-hmm,
you're in a casino in Vegas, and Vegas is always busy until it's not, until you're shut down 100%.
mm-hmm.
And you're like, whoa, I should have really been paying attention to social media. So that's how I had abandoned my YouTube channel. I mean, I had 500,000 views from sketches that I'd put up, and
Mm-hmm.
I should do a series called The House Sitter, where my
You
ex-wife
didn't
was
have that
house
available?
sitter. What's
Did you have
that?
your YouTube channel available, or did you say you abandoned it?
Yeah, it was available, but I never
Oh,
grew it. I never, after when we first started 15 years ago, I don't think we knew about monetization, or maybe it wasn't even
sure.
available.
Yeah.
So we were just, I did a series called The House Sitter, where she would house sit for you, but only if you were a celebrity. So we did like David Faustino, who was Bud Bundy and Married with Children, and my friend Mo Collins, who was on Mad TV, but now is on Fear of the Walking Dead, and Wendy McClendon Covey, who was in Reno 911, and now she's on Goldbergs, which is a big show here. And she's the lead, and she was in Bridesmaids. So and we were supposed to do Andy Dick next. We never got around to doing Andy's because he was living. We thought it'd be really funny because she was going to house sit his. He was living in his driveway in an Airstream, because he had a house, but his ex-wife was in it, so he was in the driveway. So we thought, we could do the same show, but in his little Airstream.
Right.
So these were the shows that we're putting up, and that's how we ended up with like over 500,000 views on YouTube. But then when we moved to Vegas to do the cigar thing, we didn't realize, we never had the time to spend on social media
Sure.
to go like, hey, this is how good our cigars are. We were just busy selling cigars.
Yeah, without knowing what the future to come of monetization would have been. Nobody knows. Now we know it's the people that won already that kind of caught that wind, and now it's really competitive and hard to get in that space. But nonetheless, you've still got a great following, and just for Stereo in itself, you actually meet the requirements to get monetization already, and should have been back then. But that's just Stereo for you. They dropped the ball quite a lot.
Right on. And then I think I just kind of took a break, and then I got so I did a movie called The Trust, and I had a very small part in it with Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood. They filmed it in Las Vegas. It was the last movie that they filmed at the Riviera before they tore it down, and it was Jerry Lewis's last movie. He played Nicolas Cage's dad, and so I think when history. When that happens, people will be like, "Oh, The Trust, yeah, we know it because of this." And it was Elijah Wood and Nicolas Cage, and I yell at him in Spanish, and so I had a small part in that. So Julie Goldman, who does casting out here, calls me up and says, "Hey, they shifted this Uber Eats commercial to Vegas because of COVID. They were supposed to do it in LA, but now it's here. Would you like to come in on that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." She's like, "Okay," and I must have auditioned online. Or had a chat with someone, and this would have been in January, like right in the middle of January, and it turned out to be a Super Bowl commercial for with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, Wayne's World, and Cardi B and Alice Cooper. So our part didn't make it into the Super Bowl, which for actors to be in a Super Bowl commercial is probably the highest honor, and it's the most well paid.
Mm-hmm.
Our parts didn't make it, but then they used it for their online campaign,
right.
So it's still online. So I stumbled into that, and I realized how much I loved being on set and how much fun it was. And I was, and the business we were suffering. It was very slow. So I'm like, you know what, I miss acting. And then the last day of January, I discovered Clubhouse. And just kind of jumped on there and started just meeting people. And I'm like, well, I'm interested in acting, and I'm interested in cigars, and I'm interested in business. So I started first club I started was called Celebrity, because the name was available. I'm like, all right, Celebrity and Cigar. So I started a cigar club, which probably only has 200-300 members, a couple hundred members in it.
Right.
But Celebrity has grown to about 6,000 members. And personally, same thing. I think I have like 6,900 followers on Clubhouse. So I, about 4 weeks later, I connected with, I'd been connecting with talent agents, and somebody reached out and signed me commercially, which traditionally it's easier to get a commercial agent because there's so many more commercials, so it's usually easier. But I was like, there's no way, because you can't go out and put up a show. I mean, that's the way I was used to doing it. You go, you put up a show, you invite people, they come see your show. They're like, yes, I want to add this person to my roster. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get representation. And I'm in Vegas. I'm not even in LA. But it was the perfect storm where all auditions are done via online. I have one due tomorrow that I should be working on, but I'm not, because I'm doing this, which is more enjoyable.
Right.
So I ended up signing with a theatrical, with a commercial agent. And then, I think because I had that, then it became easier to sign with a theatrical agent, which is for TV and film. And then about 2 months ago, I signed with a manager that I also had met on social audio at Clubhouse. And then along the way, I discovered Fireside and kind of built a little group over here. And I mean, I see people in the audience that, I did a show with Victoria. That was one of the first shows that I did here on with Victoria Medina
Okay.
that we did here, and it was fantastic. She's a great writer and she has this great show, and that we want to keep doing. And it's One Nation, and maybe we can have her come up and talk to us about it. Yeah, I mean, so it's. But I see the future in social audio. That's the thing. I mean, I'm in 100%. If you go to my bio, if you go to paulvato.com, you can check out my bio, and then I also have a list of all the social audio apps that apparently there's going to be something like 200. I mean, I know that
Now on the market to come in total.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of what I've been what I've been kind of getting the feeling out there. Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely social audio, and it was social media in general, but I think social audio really, and I love the aspect of Fireside here.
This is great.
Where it adds to video. I hope you're liking it.
I'm loving it. I do. It's brand new. It's still a work in progress. Of course, there's some tweaks to do on this thing, but for the most part, I love it how we've got the features on this, and I have no idea if this is working streaming live to YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and all that right now. That's what I set it up to do. The only thing is that I've got lights around here just behind I've got an iPad. I've got my phone set up on Instagram, so Instagrammers can only hear me. They can't hear you because I'm not simulcasting yet. So I'm still trying to put things together. After this show, I'm going to go out and get my Rodecaster Pro today, so I can't wait to set that up. Yeah, but I've got lights in the background which are blaring my eyes. You maybe can't tell from that. Maybe you can see it in my eyes, the reflection. But yeah, but this is great. It gives a whole feel of a podcast. I'm going to set up my nice little studio. Right now I'm just sitting on the sofa, but I'm going all out pro with this. And then, of course, if there's other things that come along, you just tie them into it and simulcast. But this, to me, seems like a one-stop shop right now. You can come here, and I believe they've got the ability to stream to other podcast platforms, but I haven't seen that here somewhere. But definitely for other video streaming, they've got that in place right now.
Yeah. I love that. I know people were having a little issues with connectivity, but I think that maybe they've worked all those issues out. So
okay,
that's
good. Okay, so we're coming up to current day in your podcast. This, I'll be honest, that this one is slightly throwing me because I've got so many things going on. I've got like computer, I've got phone above this, iPad like this, and video for the first time. So I hope I was going into it as smoothly as I normally am. I'm not sure. Hopefully you definitely felt like you were listening to because I was listening in between. I'm flicking my eyes around, seeing what's going on. But what's in the future? What's on the future for you, Paul? For from now on this point forward, with COVID kind of not going away, it'll always be here, but the world's opening up a little bit more now. Travel's starting to happen globally again, bit by bit. Social audio is hitting the market as well. Do you have a sort of plan in place?
I do. I do, as a matter of fact. And it's funny that you say travel because that's exactly the fantasy. The goal is to do a travel show. I'm a big fan of travel shows, which I watch a lot of on YouTube, whether it's like Drew Binsky or Bald and Bankrupt, but also the ones that are on the telly, I guess as British people call it, which is Travel Man, which is Richard Iowati, and he takes his celebrity friends and he'll do like a weekend trips to different parts of the world. What I'd like to do is my travel show would be to come out and meet you. I guess since you're the furthest away,
absolutely.
But along the way, meet people in real life that I've met on social audio in the past 8 months or past year. So end up in Thailand and see Kaylee over there. Go see Victoria. Go see. I met Laura on here from Move Bikes, and we were talking about a show like Go Vato Go, where we rate her electric bikes and celebrities and do that. So and if you go to paulvato.com, if I do have my Patreon now set up because people were like, well, set up a Patreon or
Absolutely.
GoFundMe. I did both,
Mm-hmm.
and see which one takes off because specifically for this travel show, it's I really want to travel. Maybe for now, at least in the U.S. I want to go see Daniel Daly. I don't know if he's here, but go see Daniel Daly in California, and then either make my way down towards Mexico and Central America and South America, and then back up to Cuba, and then across.
And you'll be doing shows all along the way with people that you've met that do shows. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Both social audio, but I'd love to film it,
Right.
and because I would love for these people that I've met. For example, if I would love to come to where you're at, and you maybe show me around. Where do you live?
Perth, Western Australia. Yeah.
So once I get to Perth, you show me around Perth, and how does your family celebrate the holidays? Is your Italian culture still part of it? Things like that, and then people that are in Thailand, how do they celebrate? So it's more about bringing their culture, their friends and family, expose me to them, and in this way, in turn, I can expose all of my friends and followers to these wonderful cultures all over the world, really, because social audio it's amazing that you're in Perth. I'm sitting in Las Vegas. In the audience are people from all over the world.
Correct.
And here we are.
Clap it up too, audience. Clap it up, please. We want to hear those claps for Paul too. Yeah, go ahead. That's the way. No, but you're dead right. Look, if you ever make it out this way, definitely hit me up. I'll be more than happy to have you a guest in our town and take you around and show you around and all that stuff, and come and eat with us, as we say. As the Italians, we do the big festive thing. In fact, a stereo user which wanted to remain anonymous was potentially coming out here at Christmas time from America. Those plans changed, but they were going to be here for Christmas. I invited them and their partner to come over to our house for dinner because we do a big family do, as we do, right? But those plans changed. But if you do make it this way as well, I used to live in Thailand with. That's how I met Kaylee. She's that's.
Oh, of course.
So my wife's a Thai national. So yeah, we'd be eating Thai food here, and then we could actually make that trip. It's only a 6-hour flight over to there, and let me introduce you there, then to Kaylee, and go for gold there. And my wife's there to speak the language as well. So if you have that on the cards, there's so much I'd love to show you. Probably I'd love to show you Thailand more than I'd love to show you Perth, to be honest. But they're both great places.
Well, wonderful. That's exactly. I think you're helping me with my plan because, of course, I'd also like to visit Chocolate Johnny. Is it Rose Bay?
I think he's on the East Coast. Chocolate Johnny's on the East Coast. He's I think he's in New South Wales, right? So he might be in Victoria. I'm not sure. Either he's on the East Coast.
I thought he said Sydney.
Yeah, so he's New South Wales. Yeah, that's the East Coast, New South Wales. Yeah, so that'd be great.
He's not in New South Wales. He's in Sydney. No, I'm just kidding.
So your flight would literally probably start off in Sydney coming from the US, and then you'd make your way across the country to where I am on the West Coast, which starts to fly up northwest up to Thailand. So yeah, I've already got your route planned for you. You just have to get here. All right.
Well, anyone that's listening, by all means, please, I have a GoFundMe. If you go to paulvato.com. I've never had to beg for money, so this is so weird for me. For my Patreon, I have different levels on there, and it was kind of an accident. I started Patreon, and I was like, well, I can't really have two. I can't have a GoFundMe and Patreon. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to activate my Patreon. They're so sneaky. All of a sudden, I got a Patreon supporter. I'm like, wait, I never meant for it to go live, but apparently there's no go live or once you set it up, I guess it just works.
Right.
So they're both there. I don't know. But
I'm going to donate. I'm going to donate to you because I appreciate doing this interview and I want to support. I want to get you out here. So where can people find your Patreon?
If you go to paulvato.com,
all the information's there. Yeah. Yeah.
I need money so I can.
Yeah.
But
it's for a good cause.
Yeah. No, I believe in this show. I really want to meet people. Just like I'm sure everybody. They're like, well, yeah, everybody wants to travel. But I really specifically I want to meet the people that I've had the pleasure and the honor of speaking with on social audio. But now, and I want to kind of put it on them to show me around their neighborhood, if you will. Your part of the world, and what makes Perth special, and how about your funny friends? How do you guys spend the weekend here in Perth? So that's really what I want to do. As far as business goes, I'm doing a lot of wholesaling to other cigar shops. I'm also doing online sales, and then acting. So if I'm going to take time off to travel, I'm going to definitely need to let my representation know. Hey, but I think in the greater, I still have time to act. So I think it's what it is. It is even if I take a month off here and there to travel, it'll be okay. I probably can't leave during pilot season, which is coming up, but yeah, and I might just start with the U.S. first, and then slowly make my way there. But it really, gadgets fascinate me, and this guy Richard Iowati, who was in I think it was called the IT Crowd. He's really funny. He has also a show called Gadget Man. So maybe I incorporate traveling, gadgets, and the people that I've met on social audio.
I'll give you a few pointers off camera on a show I was going to do in Thailand, which was going to be a great hit because we tied a few of these things in together. I'll throw that concept to you, and you go for gold. Just as long as you can get here and meet us, I'll be down for that.
And I would love for us to. I didn't realize it was only 6 hours from Perth
to Thailand
to get.
Yeah, it's not far. Yeah. Although we've been in lockdown for 2 years because of COVID, so my wife wants to get back home and visit. I lived there for 6 years. That's how I met Katie there. So we've got our family over there, all my in-laws, and we still got all of our stuff. We came back just 2 weeks before lockdown, thinking, all right, we've got our tattoo business up and running. We'll come and sit back, and then COVID wiped that away. We basically had to start from scratch. So financially, that is. But it is what it is. Who gives a shit? We're here with our health, is what I said until I had a heart attack. And then I didn't know what the fuck was going on after that. I was getting attacked by 2 days by my own goddamn heart. But I showed that bitch who was boss. It was okay. So, not a problem. I do want to play a little game with you that I play with people as we sort of get to the end of the podcast, Paul. It's called 20 Questions. Would you like to play?
I would. Are we inviting anyone up or no?
Yeah, we'll do that just after this. I want to invite some people up to ask some questions. You know what? Let's do that first. There's no hurry for this game.
I got to turn my air conditioning on.
You do that. You go for it. Not a problem. I get it because I've got my fan on here, and then I can work out.
And I'll be back.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, so.
Oh, I should have my pants on.
What's going on? The screen's frozen here. Okay, I'm going to stop I'll keep going here. I'll wait for Paul to get back because I think he understands how to work. It's a little bit easier than me. We've got MC for life.
She's going to come up here.
All right. So we've got M up here at the moment. To the listeners, I want to just invite you if you want to come up. We'll just do it one at a time so it doesn't get bombarded. Come up and say a piece to Paul and any questions you might have. But he's just turning his aircon on. He's just coming back right now. So we got Em up on stage, a friend of yours and a friend of mine. She's popping in to say hi. You can unmute yourself there, Em. There you go.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Can hear you now. How you doing there?
Sorry, I had to find my headphones.
Okay.
I'm home.
Hello.
Cool.
How are you, Elizabeth?
I am home.
Oh, thank God. Because I couldn't stand that heart monitor.
Me neither.
Kidding, right?
It was terrible.
Well, good to hear that you're home there, Em.
They dealt with me last night. But yes, I mostly came up here because I know it was going to be asked if I didn't do it. I was going to get yelled at by Paul. So about a month ago, Paul, I wrote you a theme song.
Yes, you did.
Oh, let's do it.
And anytime I come into the room, he comes in, he's like, theme song?
I'm in the hospital. Like, I don't have my ukulele. I'm like, no excuse. No excuse.
No excuse. So I had to come up here and do it for him today.
Oh, now I can see. My glasses are dirty.
He's bold. He's beautiful. His name is Paul Vato. He's a dealer of my supply of cigars. Vato cigars. He's bold. He's beautiful. His name is Paul Vato. Visit him at www.paulvato.com.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that one. Clapping from the audience. Come on. I don't know if the audience can clap it up here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't by the sounds of it. But yes, Paul, there we go. Thank you there, Dave, which I think it's I am Dave. I just saw I could put your website in there, paulvato.com. I did know that you could do that, but didn't think of it till now because so many things were going through my head. But it is on there for the listeners. Paulvato.com is Paul's website. He's got all his social media and everything there. He's a very organized guy when it comes to this sort of thing. So thank you very much, Anne, for stepping down and ask if someone else wants to pop up real quick on the podcast.
Throw me out.
Okay, I've got to work out how to do that.
And
Oh, I don't want to kick, right? I don't want to kick. I just want to move him to...
Don't kick me.
No. Hang on. I'll remove from stage.
Hang
there
on,
you go.
I think.
I got it. I gotcha. Don't kick me. That's a bad thing on here. I think if you get kicked and that mark goes against your name, it's doesn't look good, right? Anyone else want to hop up real quick?
Right.
Go ahead.
What's that?
I just said if anyone else wants to hop up real quick just to say hi or
Yeah.
don't be shy.
Maybe you've also written a theme song.
Me?
Maybe not.
Oh, maybe somebody else. Hey, I wouldn't mind if Dave hops up, if that's I am Dave. Hit speakers, give this a try. Come up to the stage, man. Welcome. We've got Elvis in the crowd too. A shout out to Brianna as well. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Eric. We've got Charlie in there too. Sam, Victoria, Lee News Debates. How you doing, Lee? Another good content creator that should be on here too. We've got Mrs. Red Rosa, Southern Hubs, Adorable Deplorable, Lolly B. Thank you for joining in the audience, at least on Fireside. I don't know who's on the other platforms, but if you're listening, thank you very much. I will go back and check that out soon. But no one else wants to pop up and say hi to you, Paul. They're shy. They're camera shy.
That is okay by me. I mean, it's just so great. Thank you for making your first interview here. I just figured out how to follow people.
Okay.
So I'm giving everyone a follow.
Are you following from another device or on the same device that we're on?
From the same device. I just
Okay.
clicked on their profile.
Yeah.
And then I saw, but I'm trying not to hit. Oh, nope. See, I almost kicked somebody.
Yeah. That's what you don't want to do. Yeah.
But it asks you, kick from the show. So it actually asks
Yeah, that's right.
So no worries. I just followed everyone, and please follow me back, of course. And,
yeah, we just got a message. Dave, you won't screw it up. I want you to jump up if you like. I can bring you up and throw you down. You just have to speak. It's up to you. I'm gonna ask anyway, and you can just ignore the request, right? So invite on stage. Let's see if that works. He's going to accept it if he would. Yeah, there he goes. So the little bottom monkey on your screen is a mute button, so you can unmute and say hi.
All right. You got us both, though.
Hello.
Oh, yes. Hey, Dave. That's perfect. Sam and Dave. So I am Dave and Sam I am. Here we are. Welcome to Fireside. I want to really bring you guys up and say hi and get a feel for this because you guys are podcasters to another app and you have a great show called How Was Your Day? So I want to introduce you to Paul Vato if you haven't met him before. And Paul, this is I am Dave and Sam I am.
Hi, how are you, Paul? And
Wonderful.
Great interview, Rock, and great interview, Paul. What a great podcast, you guys.
oh my goodness! Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I felt like I was a little rusty, but Joe over here really knows how to pull.
Oh, he's great at it. He's so good.
Really good.
Yeah, he's got to interview me next Tuesday, and not on this platform, but I'm kind of scared based on, well, I've heard him before, but based on everything, he pulls stuff you don't even want to talk about.
It's not the same when you know all my tricks, Dave. That's the problem. You know all my secret moves.
Well, as long as you and Sam I am stay together for the next week, you should be fine.
we're good.
How does that make you feel, guys? How, so yeah.
So looking forward to that. Sorry?
I love this platform too. I really like this platform to be able to see both of you guys and your reactions in live time and this platform is amazing. And Paul, it's really nice to meet you. My name's Dave Watson. It's on there. I'm a real person. My lovely wife, Sam Toscano Watson. Very nice to meet you. I can't wait to hear more from you and talk again. I follow you. I know who you are. I mean, obviously. But, yeah. All right.
Well, it is a pleasure, and the feeling is mutual. And let me know where I should follow you if you want to DM me, and I'll be more than happy to subscribe to your podcast and follow you across all social media as well, because it's an honor and a pleasure to meet you. So both of you, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Rock.
Thank you, guys. No worries. We're just going to move to the listeners.
All right, yeah. Don't delete us or block us or whatever.
Whoops!
Yeah.
I just hit the block button. I didn't hear what he said then. Whoops! My apologies, Dave. He's back down to the audience. No, I'm just removed from stage. But thanks for talking up, guys.
I think there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between removed from stage and
Yeah. No, I know that. I was just letting him think I blocked him though, but I didn't really. So anyone else wants to pop up real quick, you're welcome to do so in the next couple of minutes. We're just going to play. You just got to hit the speakers button, I believe. I'll be more understanding of this as we progress with more podcasts. Again, to the listeners, I even feel I couldn't go right in the depths of my podcast because I was looking at so many things. So I just want to still make sure I give you a good experience there, Paul. But I will absolutely get used to this more and more as time goes on. But nonetheless, there's 20 questions. Will you play it?
Okay, that's question number 1. Next.
Good. I can cut the other one out. Have your parents ever seen you naked as an adult?
No.
That's a long pause.
No, because I'm trying to be honest. No.
You said you're trying to be honest.
We're Latino. We don't do that.
Okay. Who would you turn gay for?
Well, I guess I'd have to get in my time machine and find Hugh Grant, but not anymore, obviously.
That's a bit of a necrophiliac move there, but that's okay. Okay, so how long does it take you to get ready before you head out the door?
15 minutes.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Not too bad. I thought you were going to say 15 seconds then. 15 minutes isn't too bad. All right, so...
Did you notice that I actually didn't even pause for young Hugh Grant? That was kind of weird. Okay.
You just paused about the nakedness in front of your parents, but not Hugh Grant.
Yeah, that was the weird. I was like, that's weird. Going gay for something? Yeah, Hugh Grant. Young Hugh.
I love that. All right, so have you ever seriously injured anyone?
Physically or emotionally?
Both, either.
Not serious, and it kind of ties it back to the way I must hate my brother's eyeball. The serious injury that I perpetrated on my brother, besides trying to gouge his eye out when he was a little baby, and I was a year and a half old, was cut to 13 years later, maybe 14 years later. And growing up in the Midwest, we have gutters on the house and icicles form.
All right, yeah.
And we thought it'd be a fun game to take these industrial brooms that my dad had. Probably got to.
Well, he's not there to smack you otherwise, right? So you're doing these things.
And we were knocking off these icicles, and one of them came down and literally was like an inch away from my brother's eye. And it was an icicle so sharp, it was like a dagger, and it got him right on the forehead.
Oh, wow.
About half an inch. It impaled, and just kind of slid. And I mean, he had to go to the
tore open his skin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It sliced him wide open, but it was literally an inch away from his eye, maybe less. So I guess I think that would be the most serious that I've hurt someone, maybe my ex-wife emotionally. I don't know. I wasn't listening. No, I'm sorry.
I love it. Sorry, not sorry.
So I think my brother would be the person I've hurt the most, and maybe my mom when I went away to college, because apparently she cried for weeks. That's what my dad said.
Oh, now you're an ass. Now you're taking it too far.
Too far.
Yeah, that's too far. All right.
That's why I would come back every 3 weeks with a load of laundry, of course. To see my mom.
It's like my baby brother still does it to the day. All right. So, have you ever been arrested before?
I have.
Ooh.
Yes.
For what?
Yeah. I guess. Oh, I heard a bouncer also, and the weapons listed were my hands and my fists at a strip club in the Quad City outside of Chicago. 20, maybe, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's your go-to pornography to watch?
What's my go-to pornography? Anything with my mother in it. No.
Funny, because it's anything with your mother in it that I like too. Yeah.
Just normal stuff. Goga, I guess.
Midget unicorns. I did a.
Little people, midgets.
Okay, so is that the correct way to say little people?
I say little people midgets.
Yeah,
just to upset
I'll say dwarf midgets. If that's not the correct way, then I'm going to say that anyway. And basically, I was doing a podcast with Dr. Eddie Love a few weeks back now, and one of them was when he was doing swinger parties. He's like, bro, it was wild. We had like cameras up there. We had swings. We had everything. He's like, we had like midgets walking around with dildos stuck to their foreheads. Yeah, like unicorn midgets. That's a real thing he was doing. I'm not even kidding you. He was really doing that shit. He's into it. He created pegging, he believes. All right, next question.
Take a midget and you put a dildo on its head, and it's a unicorn midget.
It's a unicorn midget. Yeah, unicorn midget. Okay, so if you were going to kill me, how would you do it?
If I was going to kill you, how would I do it?
How would you do it?
God, I mean, it's. I mean, I would say old school Italian style with a garrote. Is that what it's called? Like I would sit in the back seat.
Yeah.
Because it's nice and personal.
It's personal. And, you wouldn't be looking in my eyes though, but hey, that's okay. Okay, so next. A most embarrassing moment that's happened to you before?
Well, I was going to say I'd like to murder people because it's happened before, but first I find out about them, their ethnicity, and then I murder them in that particular way.
Oh yeah. So, well, you don't get into that until you get into your first several murders before you realize your niche with it, right?
You got to niche it, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. I'm sorry. What was your?
The next question was a most embarrassing moment that's happened to you.
I feel like I've told this story, and the most embarrassing moment would have been probably when my mom saw me naked. I would say that it was. I told you about this campaign commercial for Del Taco, and it was for Spanish TV, and I played a character named Luisito, and a burro or burrito. Burrito, people know what a burrito is, or burrito, but a burro is also an ass, like a donkey ass, but it's also slang for a dumb person. Un burro, ass un burro. He's a dummy. He's dumb. So I was Luisito, and I was kind of the fuck up cousin. And then my cousin, the good looking one, the sports guy, soccer guy, got all the girls. And I mean, I got the girls too, but only because we found a lamp with a genie and rubbed it, and wound up with these girls. But that was one commercial. So I was Luisito. And I was a burro, and they play along with that, like, oh, order some burritos. Oh, Luisito's a burro, whatever. So I was at a bowling alley in the Valley, North Hollywood, and it was probably it was kind of shady because their bathrooms all had half stalls, doors that didn't really, so you couldn't really spend a lot of time in there or you couldn't do drugs or maybe have sex with people. I don't know what was going on. But these doors were not full doors, so there was really no privacy. And so I was like, oh, I gotta go. And I'm the opposite of most people. I think, like, I'd rather shit away from the house where it's not my problem anymore.
I can't do it.
Instead of in my,
No.
yeah, and people are like, no, I can't go in public. I'm like, screw that. I'm going to go whenever. And it helps you that I've been. So, and I don't pay for toilet paper either. Not because I don't use it, but I just steal it from places. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm sitting there, and I'm, and the door's like kind of like, hitting me like right here. I'm just like, oh God, so I'm taking care of my business. This Latino guy, and I'm only saying it because it's important, walks by. He walks by and he kind of goes, doop, and then kind of like backs up, kind of like looks over the stall, and I'm just kind of like, Jesus.
Did you have your full shit face on? No, you were paused moment.
Well, I mean, I probably did, but then I paused and I was like, and it was kind of subtle, and then he continues, and the urinal is right next door. There's a wall between us, and all of a sudden he starts doing his business, and then I'm trying to finish, and he starts going, Luisito, making a burrito. Making a burrito. He must have known comedy because I remember he did it 3 times. Like, this guy's good. But at first I was like, is this guy was he about to hit on me? Because, he just walked by, you just glance over, but then he did a double take and kind of backed up over again. And I was like, oh my God, what a way to get recognized. Like, here I am thinking I'm hot shit, no pun intended. And this guy recognized me while I'm taking a dump and then starts singing Luisito making a burrito. So I think that would have maybe been the most, and maybe the first time I got arrested. I think, I didn't really care, but I just never want my mom to find out because that would break her heart. So that might have been fair.
So you didn't think about throwing something back at him just to put him off his game, like maybe open the door and start masturbating, something like that. That would have thrown him.
Sexy? No.
That would have thrown him for a 6.
Yeah. Well, he was too quick. I was thirsty turtling, and he had just, he went peeing.
Yeah, he's out of there. Yeah, that is pretty embarrassing, but that's what you get for shitting away from your nest.
I deserved it, and I remember walking in, I'm like, they're half doors. Like, all right, I'll just be quick.
All right. Next question here we've got is, if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be?
I mean, it's so broad, but besides like peace in the world, I mean, I guess peace is the most important thing, because maybe that would trickle down to no hunger. I mean, I don't like to see other people suffering, and when I know that we can help, but sometimes it's it's hard enough to help people in your own circle. But I guess, but then what do? Abolish religion so there's peace? I don't know. It's kind of cliche, but peace in the world.
Sure.
Just no over silly things, over man-made things. Yeah. Peace.
Okay. If you held a world record in the world, what would it be for?
The most 3 ways?
The most 3 ways. Yeah?
Yeah. Instead of the most 1 ways, which
next question?
Yeah, next question.
All right. Okay, if you could be any animal in the world, what would you be and why?
I think we'll go with my I don't know if it's called a spirit animal, but the monkey. I mean, I'm from the year of the monkey, and I am very curious, but I feel like poker has knocked that out of me. Because when a hand is gone, it's gone. When an audition is, same with acting. Once I audition, I don't think about it anymore. Where I used to be very curious, but I love the natural playfulness, I think, and the curiosity of a monkey. Monkey see, monkey do. I've always wanted to own a monkey. I used to get books mailed to me. Back then you could order a monkey, and I think my founder, she was like, "Don't you dare order."
That's the thing, man. Like I don't want to cut you off there. I've always wanted a monkey too. I did a show with Dave that just hopped up, and Sam a little while back, and one of those questions for me is, is a monkey had come up, and sorry, I don't know if it was their show actually. Anyway, I'm confused, but monkey had come up. I always wanted one when I went to Thailand. But if you could call your monkey a name as a pet, what would it be? I've got the
Shemia.
Shemia. See, I'd call it Spank. Exactly, go past
Spank the monkey.
Spank the monkey. There's nothing that goes past that, I think. I've always wanted a monkey just to call it that, but my wife would let me have one.
Shemia is Italian for monkey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I didn't even realize. I don't speak that fluently, so that's why I failed that understanding just then.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so what location in the world are you least likely to visit?
The bottom of the ocean.
Ooh, that's a different answer. I like that. Quite a few people have said the same answer of a country, but no one said that. That's a good one.
Well, what did it say? North Korea or
Iraq? Yeah, Iran. I think they said Iran is the least likely place they visit. Yeah, it's the most common answer I get. Yeah. Okay, so what's one app in the world that you could not live without?
Wait, what are we on? Fireside.
Fireside. Yeah, yeah, that one. Hey now. All right.
Hey, Mark Cuban. Fireside.
So, in an ideal world, how many hours a day would you be awake?
Well, I like to say that I only need about 8 hours of sleep at night and then another 8 during the day, and then I'm fine.
That's like your dad's night shift and day shift combined together with sleep, though.
Sleeping, though. Yeah. He's looking down on me or up. I don't know. Where did I go wrong with that? I went. I had an audition. I'm doing this, and I'm like, man, I'm exhausted. I don't know.
All right.
But if I could only sleep 4 hours, that I think would be perfect because I feel like there's just never enough time to get everything done. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 4 hours is my answer too. I think it'd be ideal. Okay, so if you could go back to school and choose one grade to relive and do, what would it be? Which grade would you choose?
Well, maybe kindergarten, so I'd be more well prepared and not roll my eyes out.
Right to the back of for the start of the story. Okay.
Right back to the beginning. I knew then what I know now. But otherwise, maybe senior year in high school. But I don't know. I try not to live in the past, but or freshman year in college. There's so many that you could relive.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to see if a couple more people want to come up on stage. I think everyone's a little bit got stage fright, but please, by all means, jump up, check out this platform a little bit. Just come up for a quick minute, hit that speakers button on the stage, and I can bring you up because. Look, I'm not the best at controlling these shows right now. It's still pretty new to me, but I'd love to see from a few people that have been sitting here through the whole show. We've got Elvis and Southern Hubs, Brianna, been here, Eric as well, Charlie, and now I know Sam is Dave's wife there. I didn't realize it was that Sam, so my apologies. Lee, if you're there, jump up. Who else we got there? Adorable Deplorable or Rosa, Lottie B. Any of you want to jump up for a quick minute? Let me know, but if I don't see that, we're going to start to close up the show. But while we do wait for that, Paul, I'm just going to give you a plug here on paulvato.com. I've written that on the fortune cookie. The listeners can find you on social media and everything through that website of yours.
Yes, yeah. Pretty much everything is connected to paulvato.com. All my social media links, YouTube. You can find me across all of YouTube, Facebook. I'm also on Space Hay.
What's that?
SpaceHey.com. You just have to check it out.
SpaceHey.com. I'm going to write that down.
/actor. Are you looking it up? I'll let you look it up and see what you think.
I'm going to do that right now. In the meantime, we've got Elvis jumping up on stage to say a quick hello. Everyone, this is Elvis. You know Elvis because you spoke to him on Wisdom that time. You first met him on Wisdom. Do you remember talking with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to Google that. Elvis is on stage. It's called Space Hay, is it?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Space Hay.
How you doing?
.com. Elvis, how are you?
Thank you. I was listening, highly entertained as usual with Rocstedi, and Paul, you're always very entertaining. Is that Space Hay for Space Horses? Is that what that is? Sorry, I had to.
That's good. No, that's good.
I was actually in a bathroom when you were talking
Space
about your short stall situation there. I heard something about a
That's,
monkey, and I was like, "Yeah, he should have threw his shit at the guy. That's what I would have done."
Yeah.
Elvis has got experience on the tours. Apparently, he died on one. So
Yeah, hey, it's a touchy subject, man. I got a defibrillator in every one now. Just saying.
that's it.
No.
Is it Space Hay or Hay Space?
Yeah, I couldn't get
Space Hay come up.
Space Hay came up with some porn site. Is that what you intended me to do, or?
Wait, what came up with some porn?
How
about Hay
Is it like downonthefarm.com?
It might be Hay Space, is it?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's...
Thanks for telling me that. Now I'm going to be in trouble with my wife. Why you got porn on your phone? Because you don't do it for me anymore, baby. That's why. Hay Space, Hay or Hey?
Oh,
Hey.
Hey space.com. Okay.
Yeah, the word space, yeah. Is that it? Did it come up?
No.
that Outcast song was on when I was in the bathroom. That Hey Ya.
Hey.
No, it didn't come up.
Can you still see me, or can you only hear me?
Your camera's frozen.
Okay, let me see if I can find. I thought it was Space Hay, because I was definitely not trying to send you to porn.
That's okay. Porn thing may or may not have been a joke.
It's MySpace all over again. It looks just like MySpace, and I'm on there. Yeah, spacehey.com. Hey.
Okay.
SPACEHEY.com.
Space Hey.
HEY.com. Slash act.
A space for friends. Okay. Is that the one?
A space for friends. It looks exact. It's like MySpace all over again.
Okay, for the.
It
looks like this.
Everything.
Is it the one?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh yeah.
And what, you're on this now? Is that why you sent us to this site?
I'm also on. I only have one friend, and it's Dane Cook, the stand-up comedian, because he's the one that told me about it. So I went on there, and it's just an homage to Dane Cook, because my interests are Dane Cook. My favorite movie is anything with Dane Cook, TV, etc.
Sure.
And then you can scroll all the way down and it says you have one friend, Dane Cook.
All right. Well, I'm going to join it, and I'll be your friend. That's a promise. So I'll do that in the next 12 hours when I get to bed and sign up to all this sort of stuff. But all right. So paulvato.com. Anything you want to let Paul know, Elvis, before you hop back down?
Dane Cook's not going to be like Tom on that app, is he? He's just going to be on you kick him off and he comes right back on. You remember that?
Yeah, Tom, your first friend on MySpace.
There you go.
No, I don't have anything to talk about. I just wanted to say hi and let you guys know I'm supporting.
Thank you very much.
Both of you. It was I was laughing a lot and learning a lot. It's pretty cool when normal little details about their life that people might think are boring or something or whatever. They don't think twice about them, but it's very entertaining for other people.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, because sometimes I do think that, like, who wants to hear about me, or Vegas or anything like that. But thank you, Elvis.
Our moms were right. We are all special, and we're all handsome. Some of us.
That's it.
But, yeah, thanks a lot for the hours of entertainment, guys. It was really cool, really fun.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you to all the listeners as well who have supported during the show. I know I did send a link out to people, especially people that are here and sat through the whole podcast. I really appreciate that. I do consider you guys close friends, and the support on here for this first particular show means a lot to me, more than doing other shows at the moment, because it is something that I want to sort of kick off and flood out the gates with people I'll be comfortable around with as my friends and listeners on other platforms. So thank you very much, and Paul, thank you very much as well for your time. Elvis, I'm just going to pop you down if that's cool, brother.
Yeah. One thing, what can we catch you next with, Paul? Anything upcoming, like in the near future?
Yes. It hasn't aired yet, but I think I can talk about it. There's a game show called To Tell the Truth. It's an old school
Okay.
game show that they've
Did your parents ever see you naked as an adult?
I don't think so. Taking that porno. So
That's
to
an
tell
old
the
school
truth,
one.
yeah, but it's been updated, and it's Anthony Anderson and his mom. Speaking of moms, are the hosts, and
Oh, wow.
celebrities are there, and I'm probably not gonna. I can't say what I did on the show, but look for that. And I know it hasn't aired yet, and maybe I did a pilot for a project called The Home, which is a 1-star rated old folks home. I play a minister, a chaplain, who if you die on my watch, I'm going to steal all your stuff. So don't die when I'm around.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. That sounds fun.
Hopefully not. And I feel like
All right, well, you can kick me back down, Rocky. Thank you again, guys.
All good, man.
And, clap it up, everybody.
Thank you
guys
very
take
much.
care.
Appreciate you coming up, Elvis. We really do. To remove from stage. There we go. Paul, this is it's been wonderful to get to know you. I will definitely see you around on other platforms, and this one particularly. I want to organise another show. Maybe we can do something else on another structured show here, if you're keen, because you're a great guy. You're super friendly. When I met you on other platforms before, I was really looking forward to getting to know you more here. And thank you for bearing with me with the first video one. I don't really know how it went to the listeners. I hope it went well for you, particularly with the experience. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I think it was wonderful. I'm glad that we're on this platform, and I want to thank all the listeners that stuck through the whole show. I'm here, and thank you for supporting. And yeah, please go to paulvato.com, and if you can support me on Patreon or GoFundMe, because I really want to do this travel show so I can come and see Joe Rocstedi in Perth, and then hit Thailand to go see Kaylee and yeah.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Perfect. PaulVato.com, everybody. I'll just give myself a little plug as well. So obviously, my new real home here is on Fireside. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm very appreciative to Fireside. So thank you if Fallon or anyone ever gets to listen to this show. I really do appreciate being one of your content creators here. So being on Fireside, it streams across to YouTube and Twitch, Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm not sure that went well today. I think it may have done. I have got a couple of messages saying it worked there. So I'm not sure how well it worked and it streamed well, but you can find me on Rocstedi on those platforms. Obviously on my social media, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Telegram, and Discord as Rocstedi. You can find me there. And that's really about it. So appreciate that. New website's coming out really soon, Rocstedi.com. I'm working with Kaylee on that, and she needs to get moving because she's pretty busy as well. So thank you very much, Paul, and thank you to the listeners. A real special thanks to the listeners for coming today and supporting and listening to the story for Paul Vato.
Thank you. Join my Discord also, please.
Yes, join Discord too. All right. Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to end the show now. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put where's that little bot? We can make the bot music come up, or I can check a few things before we sign out. So
yeah, the wait bot.
The wait bot, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Paul.
Invite to.
That's it. Perfect. I can stop this. Take care, man.
Take care, my friend. Thank you so much
for
having me.
Thank you, brother.
All right, now that you've gone, let's get the show on the road. Okay,